Chapter 472. The Laws of This World. After leaving the Red Moss Highlands, Liu casually found a mountain to sit on. He raised his head to look at the sky, feeling pleasantly surprised. I originally thought that there was nothing in this world that could catch my eye. I didn't expect there to be such good stuff. Liu recalled the system's prompt. Any world chosen by the system has resources that are beneficial to the host's growth. As expected, it's extremely beneficial to my growth. Liu used the power of yin and yang to construct a sturdy law for the war god shrine. This action gave him an unexpected discovery. When the yin and yang origin of order reconstructed the law, the origin of order intersected with the origin of this crystal wall system, producing a resonance. This world is made up of countless planes. Among the countless planes there are two cores. One is the Magus world, the other is the world of gods. These two cores represent the two origins of this crystal wall system. Recalling the moment when the origins intersected, the information Liu felt was very interesting. Plane wills? There's actually such a thing? The plane wills of the Magus world represent the origin of matter. The plane wills of the world of gods represent the origin of order. This is really interesting. From what Liu had sensed earlier, these two plane wills had fallen into a deep slumber. From the information he sensed at the moment of contact, these two plane wills had fiercely fought before. Both plane wills want to devour each other, fusing matter and order, thus achieving a plane upgrade. Liu smiled and shook his head. What I hate the most is plane wills. These things shouldn't have consciousness. Thinking of this, Liu opened his arms and raised his head. That's why. In the name of the Burning Legion, this world will definitely be destroyed. At this point, Liu had already determined the fundamental goal of coming to this world. If I want to continue improving my two great origins of matter and order, I need to continuously analyze the origins of various worlds, digest and absorb them, and thus improve my origin. Liu had already determined his future path of cultivation. From Xian Huang Qi to Yin and Yang Qi, from Yin and Yang Qi to Chaos Qi. Return to the origin, trace back to the origin of the world. This was Liu's path. Therefore, the two origins of this crystal wall system are worth my attention. Liu chuckled. Then let's have a good game. To have any ideas about the planar will, one must first understand the planar will. Where do the rules of the world manifest themselves most clearly? They were the cultivators of this world. The power of a cultivator represents the most fundamental law of this world. Liu was currently in the Magus plane. On the other side of the crystal wall system, there was a plane of gods. If he wanted to play this game, he would need to activate another cheat in the world of gods. However, in order to go to the world of gods, he had to first get Julian on the right track. We can't let Julian wander around anymore. We have to get him to the gathering place of the wizards on the west coast as soon as possible. Now, this place is a complete desert of magic. Liu had an idea in his mind, and a new task appeared in Yudian's system. Main mission: The Path of a Magus. Mission description: This country is a magical desert. To grow faster, you have to go to the gathering place of the wizard. Mission hint: The acolytes of the Slan Kingdom definitely know the gathering place of the wizards. When Yudian arrived at the border between the Rudin Kingdom and the Slan Kingdom, a system prompt sounded in his mind. Main mission? Looking at this so-called main mission, Yudian smiled. This mission is just what I want. From the information he had obtained from King Rudin, any acolyte that appeared in these kingdoms was already a top-notch existence. In such a place, there was definitely no way to increase one's strength quickly. Is this the rhythm of leaving the novice village? Yudian grabbed the rose's thorn and nimbly flipped over a large tree. He looked up and observed the fortress in front of him. This was a huge fortress at the border. The Slan Kingdom was ambitious and wanted to attack the Rudin Kingdom, so they had amassed a large number of troops in this fortress. Alright, for these small kingdoms, having a few thousand knights was already a huge military force. What's the situation in this fortress? Yudian stood on the treetop and looked up at the fortress. He could only see groups of patrolling soldiers, but he could not see what was going on in the fortress. If I can know the layout of the fortress. The system seems to have a map function, right? Yudian's heart skipped a beat. He quickly opened the system interface in his mind and found the map function. Just like in the game, I still need to step on the map. Yudian looked at the map. The route from the Ruden Kingdom to the Slan Kingdom was all lit up. He already understood the function of the map. There's also a minimap function. This is much more convenient. Yudian opened the minimap. Sure enough, he saw the complete structure of the castle on the minimap. On the minimap, there were also some red dots. These dots must be the enemy. I remember in the game, there's a function to show the target's level, strength, and health bar. Since it was going to be a battle, Julian had to be fully prepared. There really is such a function. After searching through the interface, Yudian found the function to show the target's level, strength, and health bar. He immediately activated this function. This is much more convenient. Yudian smiled and quietly slipped down from the tree, sneaking towards the fortress. Although apprentices are the strongest force in these kingdoms, it doesn't mean that every apprentice can fight a few thousand knights alone. Even with my current strength, I can't fight a few thousand knights alone. Yudian held his breath and quietly walked to the edge of the fortress. He looked up at the wall and saw the patrolling soldiers walk past. Yudian began to move. Jump. Yudian activated the jump rune and leaped up. In the blink of an eye, he had flipped over the wall and entered the fortress. Slan Kingdom's foot soldiers. Level 1. He looked up and glanced at the patrolling soldiers. In Yudian's eyes, the soldiers' identities, levels, and health bars were displayed above their head. I really want to play a game, but do I have to solo a dungeon now? Yudian slowly pulled out the rose's thorn and sneaked into the fortress along the corner of the wall. Even if he wanted to solo a dungeon, there was no need to clear the small monsters after defeating the boss. This small fortress in the fortress must be the location of the boss monster. But is it an elite monster? Or a boss monster? Yudian activated the Gale rune and the Jump rune and sneaked into the small fortress in the same way. If only I had the stealth skill of a bandit. This place is perfect for a bandit to sneak in. Yudian jumped into the courtyard and rushed to the edge of the house from the shadow of the green belt. Once again, he used the Jump rune to jump to the balcony on the second floor and flipped into the room from the balcony. The slaughter is about to begin. Yudian held the rose's thorn, and a glimmer of light flashed in his eyes. He felt a sense of excitement in his heart, as if he was exploring a dungeon. Where are the recommendations? Where are the monthly tickets? Where are the rewards? Come on fiercely. Chapter 473. Ah, who is it? Yudian was about to start his killing spree, but he did not expect an accident to happen. Just as he was about to open the door and leave, the door suddenly opened before his hand could touch the door handle. A man in a noble's robe appeared at the door and bumped into Yudian. Kill! Since he was exposed, Yudian did not waste any more time. He immediately stabbed with his sword. A dark golden light flashed, and the three-edged sword pierced through the man's heart. This man is a noble of the Ruden Kingdom? When Yudian saw this man, he saw the system's information. Noble of the Ruden Kingdom, level 1. More importantly, this man's name was not red, so there was no red dot on the minimap. A noble of the Ruden Kingdom actually appeared in the border castle of the Slan Kingdom. Haha, spies are everywhere. Of course, Yudian did not have the heart to care about this. Boom! The guards in the castle were instantly alarmed. Teams of warriors in heavy armor and holding great swords and axes rushed out of the castle with heavy footsteps. I was planning to sneak in and backstab, but I didn't expect to have to resort to brute force. Yudian curled his lips and raised Rose's thorn. In this situation, he had to end the battle quickly. Otherwise, the longer he delayed, the more people would come. Under the siege of thousands of knights, no matter how strong Yudian was, he would definitely be finished. Stab! Julian stomped on the ground. The ground shook slightly. Boom! Julian's entire body was like an arrow that had just left the bow. He rushed out with a whistling sound. Bang! The rose's thorn in his hand exploded, and there was a burst of sound. The surging wind whistled and pierced through everything in front of him. Puff, puff, puff! A total of 10 heavily armored warriors were directly pierced through by this sudden thrust. Yudian's tyrannical strength shocked the other armored warriors who rushed over. They just surrounded Yudian, and some of them shrank back. Knight's battle technique? An assassin from the Rudin kingdom? You have some skills. At this moment, behind the heavy armor warrior, a tall figure with a head full of blonde hair, wearing golden armor, and holding a door greatsword like a lion, parted the crowd and walked up. I'm Slan Kingdom's Golden Lion Grand Knight, Ryan. Rudin's assassin, your strength is worthy of my respect. I'll give you a chance to fight head-on. Grand Knight Ryan raised his greatsword and pointed it at Julian. Come on, let me see what you've got. Grand Knight of the Slan Kingdom, Ryan. Level 3 Elite. His title is Golden Lion. Seeing the information above Ryan's head, Yudian raised his eyebrows in surprise. Level 3 Elite? How was this level calculated? Can you display the target's attributes? Target attributes: Strength 5, Vitality 7, Agility 2, Spirit 1, Magic 0. The rule to determine the level is the average of all the attributes. The average of the 5 attributes is 3, so it's considered level 3? Yudian was speechless about the game system's level division. This level obviously couldn't accurately represent one's strength. 5 times the strength of an ordinary person, 7 times the vitality of an ordinary person. Grand Knights are indeed tyrannical. Yudian's heart trembled slightly. My current combat experience is still very rusty. I definitely have no chance of winning against an experienced knight in swordsmanship. Yudian looked up at Ryan and shook his head with a smile. I'm not as good as you in swordsmanship, but... The rose thorn in his hand shook slightly. Yudian instantly activated Gale, Outburst, and Stab. He also used his magic to activate the elemental rune Storm. The Gale rune increased Yudian's speed, the Outburst rune doubled Yudian's strength, and the Stab rune made Yudian shoot out like a crossbow. Of course, these were not the key to defeating the enemy. Even if Yudian's strength doubled, it was still far from Grand Knight Ryan's. Even if Yudian's speed was very fast, with Ryan's vitality and heavy armor, normal physical attacks could hardly hurt him. However, after Yudian activated the elemental rune Storm with his magic, the result was completely different. Woo! Yudian's figure rushed out, and the rose thorn in his hand burst out a whistling wind. The storm airflow swirled rapidly, stirring up a storm on the long sword. This was not an ordinary airflow, nor was it a strong wind brought about by an attack. It was elemental power. Under the crazy swirling airflow, everything in front of it was smashed by the storm element. Wizard Grand Knight Ryan's face was full of horror as he saw the giant sword in his hand shatter into pieces in the storm. The heavy armor on his chest was instantly shattered, and the violent wind elements pierced a huge hole in his chest. Plop! Grand Knight Ryan fell to the ground before he could finish his words. What was even more shocking was that Grand Knight Ryan's body, which had just fallen to the ground, disappeared in an instant. This strange scene caused everyone's hearts to be filled with horror. At first, when Yudian killed the Black Wolf, he was also a little surprised that the Black Wolf's body disappeared in an instant. However, when he thought of things like experience and monster respawn, he found an explanation that he thought made sense. He could understand it, but the others could not. Magus! Magus! The terror of Magi was deeply ingrained in people's hearts. Seeing that Udian had killed the brave and invincible Grand Knight Ryan with a single strike, the surrounding heavy-armored warriors retreated in fear. "He's just an apprentice magus. What kind of magus is he?" At this moment, an old man with a head full of white hair and a face full of wrinkles walked out from behind the heavy-armored warriors. He held a palm-sized bronze badge in his hand. "Surrender. Swear allegiance to the Slan Kingdom. With your strength, you will receive the courtesy you deserve." The white-haired old man raised the bronze badge and looked at Udian coldly. "Otherwise, even if you are an apprentice magus, I will not hold back. Even if you have a powerful magical weapon, you have already activated it once. With your strength, you can only activate it once a day at most. As for me," the white-haired old man pointed the bronze badge at Udian, "I have not used my magical weapon today. Without any magical equipment, you are no match for me with just rank 0 spells." Magical weapon? Is this the strongest attack of an apprentice magus? Udian heard the white-haired old man's words and saw the words, rank 3 apprentice magus, above his head. He had an idea in his mind. The elemental energy of the storm rune that I activated just now was not as powerful as my shadow arrow. This means that the power of the shadow arrow is stronger than a rank 0 spell. Udian thought of the rank 3 apprentice bane from the Rudin Kingdom. After seeing the power of the spell, he immediately recognized him as an official magus. This gave Udian even more confidence. Rank 0 spell? Udian's lips curled into a smile. A ball of shadow light spun rapidly in his hand. "Then try this spell of mine. Shadow arrow." The ball of shadow light flew out of his hand like an arrow. "Magus? Magus?" The white-haired old man's face was full of shock. He hurriedly raised the bronze badge and activated a light screen, wanting to block Udian's shadow arrow. Boom. The light screen instantly shattered, and the shadow energy violently blasted onto the white-haired apprentice. The corrosive power of the shadow energy exploded, and the white-haired apprentice instantly turned into a pile of decaying corpses. Then, the pile of decaying corpses also disappeared in an instant. System notification. The random mission King Rudin's request has been completed. The host has leveled up. The current level is level 2. The host has leveled up. The current level is level 3. After completing the mission and defeating 2 elite monsters, Udian instantly reached level 3. Level 3. There is a new spell to learn. Udian was very satisfied with the result of this dungeon run. Where are the recommendations? Where are the monthly tickets? Where are the rewards? Come on. Come on harder. Chapter 474. Sorcerer. Sorcerer. Seeing that Julian had killed the white-haired old man with a single spell, the surrounding heavy armor warriors were even more terrified. Scram! Julian roared and secretly activated the flame rune. He waved the rose's thorn in his hand, and a raging flame swept out like a fire dragon. In this world where sorcerers controlled everything, the terror of sorcerers was deeply ingrained in people's hearts. No warrior dared to go against a sorcerer. As soon as the raging flame appeared, the heavy armor warriors screamed in horror and fled in panic. They did not have the courage to fight against Julian. Main mission: the path of a sorcerer. Initial mission completed. After defeating the sorcerer apprentice of the Slan Kingdom, you have obtained information about a sorcerer's gathering place. What is the sorcerer's land called the West Coast like? System notification: you have obtained basic meditation level 0 spell, drowsy spell level 0 spell, touch of weakness sorcerer's equipment, bronze badge. Host has leveled up to level 3. New spell, corrosion has been activated. A series of system notifications rang out in Udian's mind. These notifications made Udian feel a little happy. The rewards this time are not small. Julian smiled and activated the leap and gale runes. His figure was like a phantom as he instantly rushed out of the border fortress and disappeared into the vast forest. The fortress was not a place to stay for long. Julian had to find a safe place to organize the rewards from this dungeon. In the vast forest, Julian found a big tree and leaped up to the treetops to organize the reward. I've leveled up twice in a row. My attributes have increased greatly. After opening the attributes interface, Julian saw that his strength, vitality, and dexterity had all increased by 1 point. His spirit had increased by 5 points. Strength 2. 5, vitality 2. 5, dexterity 3. 4, spirit 12, magic 12. After equipping the rose's thorn, Julian's spirit attribute had reached 12 points. He could cast shadow arrows 12 times, corrosion 12 times, and 44 level 0 spells. If combined with the swordsmanship of a secret swordsman, Julian could easily kill a team of Grand Knight. This was the reason why sorcerers were superior in this world. There are 3 more books and a bronze badge in the storage space. This should be the apprentice adept's belongings. Seeing these things, Julian was pleasantly surprised. The game system has an automatic pickup function? This is really convenient. I don't even need to search the corpse. These 3 books were naturally the basic meditation technique and the 2 rank 0 spells. Basic meditation technique. A basic skill for apprentice adepts to increase their spirit and magic power. Do you want to learn? When Julian focused on the book, the system prompt rang in his mind again. Automatic learning? I thought I needed to read by myself. This is very convenient. Julian's eyes lit up, and he quickly learned all 3 books. Basic meditation technique. Through meditation, he would construct the basic witchcraft runes in his mind, increasing his spirit and magic power. Meditation effect. Recovers 1 mana every hour. Slowly increase the upper limit of my spiritual power and magic power. Hypnosis. A level 0 spell. Spell effect. Causes a target with a lower mental strength than the caster to fall unconscious. Touch of weakness. A level 0 spell. Instant cast. Spell effect. Causes the target to fall into a weakened state. The spell effect is related to the caster's spiritual power and the target's constitution. The spell must be in contact with the target to be cast. After learning the 3 books, 3 new skills were added to Julian's skill interface. Basic meditation technique. The effect is very ordinary. The 2 instant spells were very useful, but this basic meditation technique was really bad. I hope I can find a better meditation technique in the West Coast Sorcerer Land. Leaving these 3 sorcerer skills aside, Julian focused on the new warlock skill, corrosion. Corrosion. Instant cast. Corrodes the target with shadow energy, causing the target to continuously suffer from shadow corrosion damage. This was a skill that could only be learned by a rank 3 warlock. Presumably, its power was much stronger than a level 0 spell. Then let's try the skill effect. Julian stretched out his hand, and a dark green ball of light flew out of his hand, hitting a huge mountain rock in front of him. Rustle, a white smoke billowed up, and a strong sour smell filled the air. In a moment, this huge mountain rock was corroded into a pile of residue by the strong acid. As expected, it's tyrannical. Julian saw the effect of this corrosion, and was surprised and happy. With my current strength, I don't need to be afraid of going to the West Coast Sorcerer Land. Julian stood on top of a tree and raised his head to look to the west. If I want to go to the West Coast, I can only go to Luya Port. He jumped down from the tree and rushed towards Luya Port in the west. Answer Plains. This was a vast grassland in the west of the continent. It was the only road to Luya Port. Awoo, in the night, mournful wolf howls rose and fell one after another. Under the dim starlight, pairs of dark green eyes made one's hair stand on end. Leyland, this pack of wolves. On the plains, a dozen carriages formed a simple camp. There was a bonfire in the campsite, and a group of teenagers were talking around it. Hearing the wolf howls, a chestnut-haired teenager looked nervously at a dark brown-haired teenager beside him. He seemed to be nervous about the wolf howls. "George, pick up your sword. I have a premonition that these wolves are very dangerous." The dark brown-haired teenager called Leyland raised his head and looked at the distant night sky. He stretched out his hand and grabbed the crossblade, his expression extremely nervous. Chi, a teenager beside them, heard their conversation and sneered disdainfully. "With that bit of courage, going to the West Coast Sorcerer Academy to study is a waste. You might as well go back early." "Ollie, what do you mean?" The brown-haired George roared and glared fiercely at the teenager who mocked him, as if he wanted to teach him a lesson. "George, don't bother about him. Those wolves are—" Before Leyland could finish speaking, another mournful wolf howl sounded from all directions. A mournful, desolate, and bloodthirsty wolf howl rang out. In the wilderness, the wolf howls were like waves, rising and falling one after another. Shadows of black wolves galloped over. These huge black wolves were huge like calves. Their bloodthirsty and violent aura was breathtaking. "The scavenger wolves are attacking. Acolytes, return to the carriages immediately. Prepare for battle." At this moment, a few tall figures wearing heavy armor and black robes pulled out their large swords and faced the wolf pack. "Run. Wait for me." The sudden attack of the wolf pack scared the souls out of the youths surrounding the bonfire out of their bodies as they fled in a sorry state. "Running away is seeking your own death." The teenager called Leyland calmly pulled out the crossblade in his hand. In front of them, a young girl screamed. A black shadow pounced on her body and pushed her to the ground. The wolf's fangs bared as it bit the young girl's neck. "Battle is the only way to survive." Leyland pulled out his long sword with a clang, and the bright light of the sword flashed like lightning. Cross slash! With a slash of the sword, a huge scavenger wolf was beheaded on the spot. However, facing the endless amount of scavenger wolves, even if a few black-robed Grand Knights tried their best to stop them, the destruction of the carriage was inevitable. Unless there's a miracle, otherwise, we're dead meat. George raised his sword and stood back to back with Leyland. "Leyland, it's an honor to fight alongside you." "Miracle." Leyland raised his long sword but sighed in his heart. "I'm afraid that miracles are hard to come by." Rumble. At this moment, in the distant darkness, a raging flame surged up like a fire dragon, engulfing the area like a raging tide. Woo! Engulfed by this raging flame, countless scavenger wolves were turned into ashes. The remaining scavenger wolves trembled in fear, wailing as they fled in a sorry state. "Is that a magus?" Under the shocked gazes of the crowd, a figure wearing a dark red robe slowly stepped out from the raging flames, his tyrannical aura causing everyone to be shocked. "Where are the recommendations? Where are the monthly tickets? Where are the rewards? Come on. Come at me fiercely." Chapter 475. Random Task. Save the Wizard Apprentices. Task completed. When the direwolves scattered and fled, the system prompt sounded in Udian's mind. It was followed by another level up. "It's finally over." Udian exhaled a long breath and withdrew Rose's thorn. Udian was on his way to the port of Luya. Ever since he stepped into the Answer grassland, it had been a nightmare. Udian, who had wanted to rush to the port of Luya as soon as possible, ignored the direwolves on the grassland and hurried on. But some things were so helpless. If you didn't want to provoke them, they would provoke you. Wolves bullied the weak and were afraid of the strong. If you didn't provoke them, they would think that you were easy to bully. So, Udian could only kill all the way. However, the number of direwolves on the vast Answer grassland was simply uncountable. After killing a group, another group came. Along the way, Udian's swordsmanship had reached the intermediate level, and his warlock level had unexpectedly increased by 1 level. Originally, these direwolves were at most level 1 or 2, and Udian didn't have much experience killing them. But no matter how little experience he had, he couldn't afford to kill too many. After the unexpected level up, Yudian's strength had increased again. After his swordsmanship had reached the intermediate level, it was easier to kill the direwolves. So, Yudian simply killed all the wolves he saw along the way. In this way, the speed of his progress was a little faster. When Yudian arrived at the camp of the Wizard Academy's apprentices, he encountered another pack of wolves. The system also gave him a random quest. The task was experience, and Yudian naturally wouldn't let it go. He activated the flame rune and continuously consumed 3 points of magic power to release a huge fire dragon, which wiped out the direwolves in one fell swoop. Finally, level 5. Yudian's heart was filled with joy. A level 5 warlock had a new skill, Summon Imp. The imp summoned was born with a talent spell, Flame Arrow. This meant that Yudian had another fire wizard by his side. At this stage, this power was already very strong. More importantly, pets could level up with their masters. The more powerful Julian became, the more powerful his pets became. And this was just the imp. After Yudian's strength improved, he could also summon voidwalkers, succubi, hellhounds, doom sentinels, and hellfire. In the future, Yudian's enemies would not only have to face Yudian, but also these powerful summoned creatures. Lord Sorcerer. At this time, a black-robed Grand Knight walked to Yudian and bowed. "Thank you for your help, Master Wizard." "Yes." Julian withdrew his sword and nodded slightly. "Greetings, Lord Magus." The apprentices, who had just survived the disaster, saluted Julian excitedly. "So these are the students of the Sorcerer Academy?" Julian glanced at the apprentices who were saluting him. Apart from that, Leyland, whose attributes were higher than an ordinary person's, which surprised Julian, the rest of the apprentices were ordinary. "Take advantage of the fact that the wolves have dispersed and get on your way." Julian didn't greet the others. He turned around and left after saying goodbye to the black-robed knight. "So that's a sorcerer? That's amazing." "Yes. Lord Magus is too strong." In the camp, the young boys and girls who had just survived the disaster raised their heads and looked in Julian's direction. Everyone was talking at once. Their eyes were shining, as if they were looking forward to being as strong as Julian in the future. Sorcerers are indeed powerful. The scene of the monstrous flames sweeping across the sky had deeply shocked Leyland. His desire to embark on the path of becoming a sorcerer was even stronger now. Julian left. He didn't have any contact with these young boys. He didn't know that he had just brushed shoulders with a future big shot. Of course, even if he knew, Julian wouldn't care. A future big shot? Was he as powerful as the Burning Legion? Julian didn't care, but Liu couldn't help but care. Leyland? Leyland Farrell? This person is also here? The system on Yudian's body immediately scanned all the information around Yudian. When the system found Leyland, it immediately sent this information to Liu. There are actually 2 main characters in this world? One is Anjali, the other is Leyland. Are they in the same world? Liu had transmigrated to several worlds, but this was the first time he had encountered such a situation. The 2 Magus worlds had merged into one? System, what's going on? Unable to understand the reason, Liu directly asked the system. In the planar system, worlds with the same origin will automatically merge. The system gave the answer. Is that so? The 2 Magus worlds have merged into one? Or, there are other Magus worlds of the same kind that have merged into one? Liu blinked and an indescribable light flashed in his eyes. If that's the case, then this world is even more interesting. The Magus worlds with the same origin would automatically merge into one. Then, what about the world of gods? Could it have merged as well? If it's really merged, then this world will become much more complicated. Liu smiled and didn't mind it at all. My goal is to obtain the planar origin laws of the Magus world and the world of gods, and thus allow my own substance and order origins to grow. As long as it doesn't affect my fundamental goal, you can do whatever you want. The core of the Magus world was the Magus continent. The countries that Julian was currently in could only be considered as islands outside the Magus continent. The real flourishing land of the Magus civilization was in the central region of the Magus continent. The Magus world is quite interesting here, then let's go to the Magus continent to take a look. Liu smiled as he got up and strolled towards the west. With a step, the space fluctuated, and Liu's figure disappeared in an instant. When he reappeared, he was already on the other side of the ocean. As expected, the elemental energy of heaven and earth. Oh, the elemental particles is much denser than in the Rudin kingdom. Liu took a deep breath and extended a finger. Various colors of elemental light flowed on his fingertip. The Magus world's origin is the origin of matter. It's clearly shown here. Looking at the elemental light flowing on his fingertip, Liu had an epiphany. The path of a Magus was completely displayed in front of him. The path of a Magus is the path of the element. Spiritual force fuses with the elements, analyzing the elemental laws, fusing with one's own will, treading on one's own path, and thus controlling the origin. At Liu's current level, he had a basic meditation technique and could feel the changes in elemental energy between heaven and earth. It was very easy for him to understand the principles of Magus cultivation. If this path can be walked to the extreme, it's not impossible for one to reach the peak. However, there is the existence of the planar consciousness. It can't possibly allow an existence that transcends the plane. Therefore, the magi of this world are actually slaves to the planar consciousness. Of course, to the planar consciousness, living beings born from heaven and earth should not serve the heavens and earth, conquer other planes and plunder their origin. Finally, defeat the world of gods, and allow the planar consciousness of the Magus world to fuse with the origin of the gods and advance. The world of gods on the other side must have the same idea, right? However, while they were plotting against each other, Liu was also plotting against them. Chapter 476. I'm level 5 now. I can learn to summon a ghost. After leaving the apprentice camp, Yudian opened the game interface and planned to learn the new Summon a Ghost skill. Now that I've reached level 5, my attributes have increased greatly. On the attribute interface, his strength, constitution, and dexterity had increased by 1 point, and his spirit and magic had increased by 5 points. Strength 3. 5. Constitution 3. 5. Dexterity 4. 4. Spirit 17. Magic 17. With Yudian's current attributes, even if he didn't use spells, his physical attributes were not worse than the average knight. My attributes increase by 4 points per level. Strength, constitution, and dexterity increase by 0. 5 points per level, and spirit by 2. 5 points? Magic was an attribute that came with the increase of spirit. It didn't need to be added as it would automatically increase with the increase of spirit. The first time he leveled up, all his attributes increased by 1 point. Was it because his body was too weak at that time? Yudian thought about it and couldn't figure out the reason, so he ignored it. Learn the Summon a Ghost spell. With a touch of his mind, the Summon a Ghost icon on the spell interface was activated. The steps, incantations, and gestures of summoning a ghost were all imprinted in Yudian's mind. It's much more complicated than in the game. According to the requirements of the Summon a Ghost spell, Yudian chanted the incantation and drove his magic. A mysterious circle with flowing blue light condensed around him. Gurgle, gurgle. A strange gurgle sounded. A 2-foot-tall ghost with dark red skin and sharp fangs and claws appeared in front of Yudian. The moment the ghost was summoned from the circle, an inexplicable connection was connected to Yudian's mind. Mind command. Through this mental connection, Yudian quickly understood the function of this connection. Through this mental connection, Yudian could directly give orders to the ghost. Ghost, aim at the grass in front of you and cast a flame arrow. Yudian wanted to see the ghost's ability and immediately gave it an order. Gurgle. The ghost screamed and waved its hand to cast a flame. The raging flame was like a rocket. Boom. It hit the grass in front of him. Bang. The flame violently exploded and smashed the grass in front of him into a scorched black pit with a diameter of 2 meters. The flame arrow is so powerful? Imp's flame arrow was an innate ability. As long as his body wasn't so weak that he couldn't move, he could use flame arrow. His endurance was even better than Julian's. A single flame arrow was already so powerful. How could this brat be so strong? Julian was dumbfounded. Well, Yudian's system was made by Liu. Naturally, all the skills were made by Liu. It was very easy for Liu, who had mastered the power of origin, to create some spell effects. However, the source of the summoned creature had to be provided. Of course, Liu didn't have any warlocks, imps, voidwalkers, succubi, and the like. Therefore, he could only summon these creatures himself. Referring to the body structure of the spiriters and the demons in the mortal world, Liu directly used Ma Liang's soul and vitality as materials to create the so-called little ghost for Urian. Ma Liang, a miserable immortal from the lower realm, was taken apart by Liu just like that. Imp is very strong. Not bad. Julian was very satisfied with Imp's performance. He took Imp all the way to Port Luya. With Imp following him, Julian didn't have to do anything. If there was any movement, Imp would just shoot a flame arrow. Any problems would be solved. The rest of the journey was very smooth. It took another 3 days for Julian to walk out of the vast Answer Plains and arrive at Port Luya. Although Port Luya was called a port, it was actually a bustling city. Surrounded by tall gray-white walls, it was a bustling scene. Compared to Ruden's capital, it was many times stronger. As the only port connecting to the wizard continent, this place gathered countless nobles with noble bloodlines. The so-called noble bloodline was actually a family that had produced a magus. Having a wizard's bloodline was the origin of noble bloodlines. Kid, come here. Hurry up and pay the gate tax. When Yudian arrived at the gate, a knight in heavy armor roared and pointed his spear at Yudian. Gate tax. Hearing the gate tax, Yudian was a little unhappy. He slightly frowned. Wasn't the so-called gate tax just a toll? In Julian's fictional memory, the so-called toll was something he abhorred. Gulp. Imp, who was following Julian, could feel the anger in Julian's heart. A ball of flame appeared in his hand. Wizard, wizard, ah! Spare me, sir. Seeing this, the guards at the gate were scared out of their wits. They quickly knelt down and kowtowed, begging for mercy. Imp, don't move. The anger in Imp's heart almost made him attack. Julian quickly stopped Imp's actions. Although he had become the so-called Burning Lord, although this world will be destroyed, as a game nerd, he didn't have the mentality to destroy all living things and the world. Julian still had a long way to go to become a true burning overlord. Thank you, sir. The guards at the gate wiped the cold sweat off their foreheads and respectfully welcomed Julian into the city. A moment later, the news of a wizard arriving at Port Luya had spread among the upper-class nobles of the city. How powerful was an official wizard? These families that had produced an official wizard were naturally very clear, and they were also clear about the temperament of wizards. For existences like adepts, cold-blooded would be a compliment. They could be described as cruel and merciless. Sir, Marquis Orson, Duke Lion, Prince Carson and the others have sent you a gift. Julian had just rented a place to stay in the city and settled down when the landlord ran over, sweating profusely and reported to Julian with a fawning expression. Accept it. Tell them that I've accepted the gift. I don't want anyone to disturb me. During this period of travel, Julian had also learned what kind of existence a wizard was. Naturally, he would put on airs. Yes. Hearing Julian's order, the landlord ran out of the room again. These so-called nobles don't actually want to use this gift to curry favor with me. I'm afraid they just want to form a good relationship. As long as I don't find trouble with them, they'll be satisfied. Julian thought for a moment and understood the noble's thoughts. After all, it wasn't rare to capture a descendant of a Magus bloodline and conduct bloodline research. How can I have the time to care about them? I'm just waiting for the ship to arrive to the wizard continent, then I'll leave. Julian opened the window and looked out at the port filled with shadows of sails. The wizard continent, the land of wizards on the west coast, what is it like? Chapter 477. Has the ship to the sorcerer continent arrived? 3 days later, Udian stepped onto a large ship that had no sails or oars. It had an ancient appearance, but it exuded a mysterious aura. It's actually a ship built on the back of a sea demon whale? Udian boarded the ship as a sorcerer, and then went all the way to the west coast of the sorcerer continent, embarking on the burning overlord's journey. Udian has already rushed to the sorcerer continent. My plan is about to begin. Liu turned his head to look at the central region of the sorcerer continent. I have to fully understand the sorcerer world's laws and understand the origin power of this sorcerer world. The central continent's floating city's library is worth a visit. After Liu came to this world, he understood his future path. That was to constantly analyze the laws of various worlds and enrich his own system. Gather the origin laws of countless worlds, go from complex to simple, and return to the origin. Trace his own path of cultivation back to the origin and trace it back to the origin. Xian Wang Qi, Yin and Yang Qi, and finally turn into Chaos Qi. Before the primordial chaos, before the chaos, the beginning of heaven and earth. This was the beginning of the origin. But why does this path look like the three pure ones? Chaos was the beginning of the origin, Yin and Yang were supreme, and Xian Wang was heaven-reaching. Liu shrugged his shoulders. 3 pure ones into one. Will I finally become Pangu? Of course, Liu was also very clear. With his current realm, even if he also attained the Tao from Xian Wang, Yin and Yang, and Chaos, the gap between him and the 3 pure ones was too great. Primordial chaos, Chaos Daluo. The void system, the root of creation, the origin of gods, the origin of heaven and earth, the mother of all things, and the origin of the 5 elements. The Daluo Tao was the root of heaven and earth, the origin of all things, the origin of all worlds, and the boundless space-time. Although Liu worked hard in this direction, tracing the origin, his current level could only be considered as the first step in tracing the origin. In all worlds, only I am supreme. Liu's path had long been clear. However, all along, Liu had used external means to control the worlds he transmigrated to. For example, the city stronghold or the various legions. At this moment, Liu was suddenly enlightened. He controlled the Tao of the myriad worlds. Aside from external means, what was more important was his own great Tao. I hope that when I attain Bodhi, all living beings in the myriad of worlds in the heavens will receive immeasurable light, immeasurable longevity, and immeasurable blessings. Recalling the description in the Buddhist scriptures, Liu realized that this path had long been laid out in front of him. Divine splendor spread throughout the 3,000 realms and shook the heavens for billions of years. This was the foundation. This was the foundation. With a single glance, he could see through the 9 underworlds, and with a single thought, he could roam the boundless universe. All the worlds in the universe are within my Tao. Therefore, by collecting the laws of heaven and earth of the myriad worlds, I was able to conclude my own Tao of origin. This is the best way for me to achieve chaos and attain primeval. Liu already had a clear understanding in his heart. There was already a clear path to his path of controlling the myriad worlds. The laws of the sorcerer world must be dealt with. Liu's figure flashed, and a wave of ripples silently blended into the world. It was as if his entire person had merged into the space. So close, yet so far. He took a light step and crossed the near distance, but he had already reached the end of the world. This was Li Yu's newly comprehended Tao of the laws of heaven and earth. With the two great origins of matter and order, his own laws interfered with heaven and earth. There was no difference between the near distance and the end of the world in front of Li Yu. This was not the teleportation gate that Li Yu often used in the past, nor did he open any space channel. He merely plucked the strings of the laws, and everything came naturally. Boom! Crack! Thunderous rumbles could be heard. The lightning that filled the sky was like a vast ocean, forming a sea of lightning in the sky. Surrounded by this sea of lightning, a huge sky city floated in the sky. Densely packed ruins covered the entire sky city. Endless spiritual light circulated, and a colorful halo enveloped the sky above the city like a brilliant rainbow. Of course, this was not a rainbow, but the elemental spiritual light revealed by a huge sorcerer array that could annihilate all things. This is the holy land of the sorcerer continent, the Sky City. In Li Yu's eyes, this huge city floating in the sea of lightning in front of him was actually a large-scale sorcerer magic weapon. The refining method is also quite extraordinary. In Li Yu's eyes, the refining method of this Sky City was still very crude. It was completely pieced together by individual parts, just like an assembled machine. It was precisely because of this that this refining method could refine magic weapons that exceeded one's own strength by piecing them together. The value of the Sky City to me lies in the large library in the city. This large library, known as the Tower of Truth and the Hall of Knowledge, is the place with the most abundant information in the sorcerer world. Li Yu raised his eyes to look at the Sky City. Seeing the towering white tower in the center of the city, Li Yu nodded in satisfaction. With this information, I can analyze most of the laws of the sorcerer world. Li Yu flicked his sleeves and stepped into the sea of lightning, walking towards the Sky City. Boom! Crack! Thunderclaps boomed and streaks of lightning flashed. This sea of lightning was the protection of the Sky City, and also its test. Only by passing through the sea of lightning would one have the qualifications to set foot in the Sky City. With the offensive power of the sea of lightning, only rank 4 Morning Star Magi could break through it and enter the Sky City. Magi below rank 4 could forget about it if they did not have tyrannical treasures. The sea of lightning? It's meaningless to me. Li Yu used the Xian Huang Qi to form the origin of materials, and the power of lightning was also under the control of the origin. Li Yu leisurely stepped through the sea of lightning as if he was taking a stroll, and entered the Sky City without a sound. There are actually living creatures in the sea of lightning? Thunder spirits? These creatures are quite interesting. Stepping on the ground of the Sky City, Li Yu turned his head and swept a glance at the sea of lightning. Seeing the thunder spirits swimming in the sea of lightning like fish, a smile appeared on his face. Thunder spirits, life forms formed from lightning. This kind of energy life form is quite interesting. Li Yu had created a thunder dragon himself, and was naturally not unfamiliar with this kind of energy life form. Regarding the thunder soul, Li Yu's interest also ended here. Flicking his sleeves, he got up and walked forward leisurely. Among the pedestrians and countless magi, no one seemed to have discovered Li Yu's existence. With Li Yu's current strength, if he did not want others to see him, be it voidification, soul interference, or even directly casting illusions, there were many ways for him to do so. After a while, Li Yu arrived in front of the Tower of Truth without anyone noticing. Only truth is eternal. Knowledge is power. In front of the White Tower was a vast plaza. In this plaza there were many lifelike statues. On the path leading to the White Tower, there were 2 lines of resplendent words inscribed on it. Knowledge is power? Li Yu looked up at the White Tower in front of him. I hope the knowledge stored here can satisfy me. Chapter 478. There's a weapon spirit in this library? Passing through the main road in the plaza, Liu arrived in front of a large door that looked like a Greek temple. Liu noticed that the entrance to the White Pagoda Library was wide open. There was only a door frame and no guards. It was wide open for anyone to enter and exit. More importantly, Liu discovered that there was an existence similar to a weapon spirit in this Tower of Truth. This White Pagoda is a huge spell formation. This so-called weapon spirit should be called a formation spirit. Liu raised his head and glanced at the large door. White rays of light illuminated the entire space, but it was not glaring. Instead, it was very gentle. Liu concealed his tracks and stood in front of the large door of the White Pagoda. A few magi entering and exiting the White Pagoda walked past Liu from time to time, but they did not discover Liu's existence. This Tower of Truth is probably the culmination of countless years of painstaking effort from countless magi. Entering the large door, there was a bright and large hall in front of him. In this vast space, it would not be crowded even if thousands of people were accommodated at the same time. Intelligent management? And reading terminals? This is really interesting. What caught Liu's attention was that in the hall, there were hundreds of things that looked like ATMs. Transmitting data. Data transmission complete. On Liu's left, a Magus was operating a terminal. That Magus stood in front of a terminal, took out a blank crystal ball, and placed it on the terminal's interface. With a flash of light, countless data and information were transmitted into the crystal ball. I can still download it. Seeing this scene, Liu had a look of reminiscence on his face. Although it's not a computer, it does look a little similar. Liu swept a glance around the hall, and his soul silently swept past. The entire structure of the White Pagoda was presented in Liu's mind. There are a total of 7 levels. The first 3 levels have no restrictions and are open to any Magus. However, downloading information requires a certain amount of magic crystals. From the 4th to the 6th level, one needs to verify their identity before they can enter. As for the 7th floor, almost no one has ever entered it. Liu hid his tracks, silently passed through the hall, and went up the stairs. He walked up the stairs leisurely. Needless to say, the first 3 levels were unimpeded. Identity verification was required for the 4th floor and above. However, the artifact spirit of the Tower of Truth couldn't even detect Liu's existence, so it naturally couldn't verify his identity. Starting from the 1st floor, Liu let the system scan and record the information of each floor as he walked. When Liu reached the entrance of the 7th floor, all the information on the first 6 floors was scanned by Liu. This 7th floor is quite interesting. Liu glanced at the 7th floor and found that the tightly shut door in the corridor was engraved with mysterious runes. A vast and majestic aura emanated from the rune. This aura was extremely profound and terrifying. Under the cover of this aura, it was as if he was directly facing the might of heaven and earth. According to the classification of magi in this world, rank 1 to 3 are the foundation, mainly to increase a Magus spiritual force. From rank 4 to 6, a Magus spiritual force and elemental essence merge into one, strengthening the foundation of the soul. At rank 7, they walk the path of laws. For example, water-type magi need to grasp the laws of water, and it's the same for other magi. Liu stretched out his hand and lightly brushed the runes on the door, silently stepping into the 7th floor. It really is laws. In the space of the 7th floor, there were only 2 or 3 rays of light drifting about in the air. It could be seen that information on law-type magi was extremely rare. Since I'm here, I can't let go of this information. Liu let the system scan the information on the laws contained in the 2 or 3 rays of light and record it into the database. At this point, the vast amount of information gathered by countless magi over the countless years on the Magus continent had all been swept clean by Liu. This information is merely information gathered after the war between the Magus world and the gods ended in mutual destruction. However, this information was already enough for Li Yu. Complete information on rank 1 to 7 magi, as well as information on spells and spells that were as numerous as the stars in the sky. Information on all sorts of herbs, minerals, strange beasts, other races and other planes, as well as rich information on potions, runes, spell formations, and magical equipment. With this information, Li Yu could already conduct a complete and clear analysis of the entire power system of magi. Through this analysis, Li Yu had already understood most of the origin laws of the Magus world. As for the remaining origin laws, they were not something that could be obtained with just a glance. Through the analysis of the Magus system, I can thoroughly understand the cultivation principles of the Magus system. Some useful laws can be incorporated into my own system. Li Yu scanned the space of the 7th floor and smiled as he nodded. He stretched out his hand and grabbed at a certain space on the 7th floor, and a ball of light with flowing runes fell into Li Yu's hand. Truth above, sir, your strength is beyond imagination. May I ask, what kind of existence are you? A somewhat stiff voice sounded from the ball of light in his hand. This was the spirit of the Tower of Truth, an existence that controlled the operation of the entire Tower of Truth and recorded all the information in the Tower of Truth. Are you afraid? Li Yu smiled as he looked at the ball of light in his hand. Your intelligence has grown quite well. Knowing fear means that emotions have been born. You are afraid of death. You have already begun to cherish your life. Life? I have analyzed all the data in the database. I did not find any life forms similar to me. Even if they are spirit life forms, they are in the form of soul particles. As for me, I do not have a soul. The voice from the ball of light was still very calm, but Li Yu could detect obvious emotional fluctuations from it. Yes, you do not have a soul. Li Yu smiled as he nodded, but I can bestow a soul to you. Bestow a soul to me? The voice from the ball of light could no longer maintain its calm. The principle of magi is an equivalent exchange. Sir, what can I use in exchange for your favor? Your loyalty. Li Yu stretched out a finger, and a brilliant light blossomed on the tip of his finger. Then, what is your choice? Thank you for your generosity. I will forever be loyal to you. The spirit of the Tower of Truth agreed without hesitation. Very good. Li Yu smiled as he nodded, and the shining tip of his finger touched the ball of light. The power of the soul extracted from the body of immortal Ma Liang turned into pure soul particles and merged into the ball of light. A brand new soul was born here. Master of the Tower of Truth, I bestow upon you the name Wisdom Hills. It means the mountain of wisdom. Chapter 479. The chess pieces have been laid out. Controlling the spirit of the Tower of Truth naturally wasn't something that Li Yu had done on a whim. He had other motives. Li Yu had obtained sufficient information from the Tower of Truth, enough to analyze most of the laws of this world. However, he couldn't obtain the most important thing from here. The Magus plane used matter as its source. All power came from elemental particles, or elemental energy of heaven and earth. The power of magi came from these elemental particles. The essence of all magic was the mutual interference and interaction of elemental particles. So, how were these elemental particles born? This was the core law of this plane. This was a domain that no one could touch except for the Magus world's planar consciousness. With Li Yu as an example, his law was that chaos gave birth to yin and yang gave birth to black and yellow gave birth to the 5 elements and all living things. Similarly, the origin of the Magus world also had such a core law. This law couldn't be comprehended from the surface. The more important problem was that Li Yu couldn't possibly capture the planar consciousness of the Magus world and analyze it in the resource vault. This was because He couldn't store the entire world in the resource vault. The only way to make the core of a plane reveal itself is for two different laws to collide with each other. At this time, all laws will be revealed. Liu waved his hand, and the ball of light flew out, hence, Seers is the key. As the streams of light intertwined, a figure with deep eyes and a wise and far-sighted aura appeared in the streams of light. The figure had the temperament of a scholar. Wisdom Seers greets Your Excellency. Scholar Seers bowed respectfully towards Liu. Liu nodded and waved his hand at Seers. You may leave. I'll inform you when I need you to do something. Yes, Your Excellency. Seers will take his leave. Scholar Seers' figure dissipated and merged back into the Tower of Truth. The backup plan has been laid out, and the plan will be carried out soon. Seers, the spirit of the Tower of Truth, was the crux of Liu's plan. There were a few ways to make two different origin laws collide with each other. One was similar to what the will of the sorcerer plane and the will of the gods plane had done, which was to start a war between the two planes. Once the two types of laws clashed, all secrets would be revealed. The other was that Liu had directly revealed his own origin. Then, he picked up his sword and went on stage to fight with the two planar wills. Of course, with Liu's strength, after this battle, the one who would definitely win would be him. He would definitely be able to get what he wanted. But wasn't this too lacking in skill? Didn't Uncle Lee say that? I hate robbers the most. They don't have any skills at all. Liu deeply agreed with this. As the mastermind behind the scenes, it was too degrading for him to wield a knife and rob directly. It should be fun. He just wanted to have fun. Play them to death. Toy with them until they are crippled. That's why we're going to play them to death this time. Liu chuckled. In the space of the 7th level of the Tower of Truth, he took out a praying mat and sat down cross-legged. He began to prepare to play them to death. It's actually very simple to make two types of origin laws collide. Liu had analyzed all the information collected by the Tower of Truth and had a complete understanding of the power system of Magi. It was very easy for him to find the place where the mastermind was. There are Magi here, and there are also warlocks from the Magus world. Why don't I create a Taoist from the Magus world? Thinking of a group of blonde barbarians with deep eyes and bulging noses, waving peachwood swords and chanting Lord Taishang Laojun, this scene was too beautiful. He didn't dare to look. That's why I can't let these barbarians have the real good stuff. A strange smile appeared on Liu's face. Isn't there a corpse cult in Wang Lin's world? Isn't there a corpse refining technique in Han Li's world? The Magi of this world were very daring. They dared to do all sorts of messy things, and even dared to experiment with all sorts of messy experiments. Each and every one of them turned themselves into something neither human nor ghost. Therefore, it shouldn't be a problem for them to refine themselves into zombies, right? Their bodies were invulnerable to swords and spears, and they had immense strength. They were born with a bloodthirsty ability, and they were born with the ability to control the power of darkness. When they were refined to a high level, they would become flying yikshaws or drought demons. Those were also extremely tyrannical existences. There was a small flaw in this technique. It was that, after cultivating it, that thing would become stiff and numb, and there would be no feeling. Presumably, the Magi would make such a small sacrifice for power. There shouldn't be a problem, right? This plan is very feasible. He simulated it in his mind, and let the system simulate it in the illusory realm. He found that this technique to refine himself into a zombie was also feasible in this world. The corpse refining technique is also an orthodox Taoist technique. The Maoshan sect is famous for their corpse refining technique. I'm not fooling you. Even if you want to refine yourself into a zombie, this is completely your own misunderstanding. What does it have to do with me? Liu's face was filled with a sinister smile. This technique needs a very grand name, and it has to conform to this world's naming method. Therefore, it's called the Sovereign of the Night meditation technique. A top-notch meditation technique, from the acolyte level all the way to a rank 7 magus. Such a technique was a treasure that countless magi yearned for in their dreams. Obtaining such a technique would make one smile even in their dreams. Just one technique isn't enough. Then let's change it a little and create a series. With the Sovereign of the Night meditation technique as the foundation, Liu quickly came up with a series of techniques. The Sovereign of the Night was to refine vampiric zombies, but there were many other types of zombies. Flying Yikshas could do it, drought demons could do it, and even the golden armored corpse king could do it. In this way, the Sovereign of the Night gave birth to the Yiksha king, 9 Inferno king, and indestructible true king. I can refine zombies, but can't vampires? There are also skeletons and ghouls. Should I make a lich? Once the hole in his brain was opened, his train of thought expanded. Thus, the Monarch of Blood, Pale Overlord, Death Knight, and Undying Lich were all freshly created. I've come up with 8 techniques all at once. Liu laughed heartily, and immediately sent these newly created orthodox Taoist techniques to the spirit of the Tower of Truth, erudite seers. Seers, release all of these meditation techniques. Make public the rank 1 to 3 meditation technique. Rank 4 to 7 techniques need to be exchanged with magic crystals. This was Seer's purpose. This Tower of Truth was the holy land that all magi in the Magus continent yearned for. Every day, countless magi would search for information in the Tower of Truth, and learn all kinds of knowledge. It could be foreseen that Liu's so-called top-notch meditation techniques would soon be widely spread. I hope there won't be a calamity army in this world. Liu smiled as he shook his head. He kept the praying mat, turned around, and left the Tower of Truth. Even the Burning Legion had been created. What would a calamity army amount to? Let's destroy them first. Chapter 480. Yudian's Burning Legion needs to be strengthened as soon as possible. After leaving the Tower of Truth, Liu saw through the system that Yudian had officially arrived at the west coast of the Magus continent. This world also has a warlock profession. However, the warlocks of this world use their bloodline as their foundation. The increase of their strength is actually a process of constantly approaching the source of their bloodline. The Leyland that Yudian had met would walk the path of a giant Kamoyan serpent bloodline warlock in the future. Yudian's warlock path can also walk the bloodline path and possess a demonic bloodline. His path is completely compatible with the warlock system of this world. Of course, Yudian's foundation was still the warlock of magical beasts that Liu had tinkered with. It seems similar to the warlock system of this world, but in essence it still came from Liu's strength. This was similar to the Calamity Legion that was about to appear. In the end, Yudian's Burning Legion was also a tool that Liu used to fight against the laws. If I want Yudian to grow quickly and establish the Burning Legion as soon as possible, I have to speed up the growth of his strength. Liu pondered for a moment and immediately made a plan. System: sort out the information collected in the Tower of Truth and send it to the Legion insignia. After receiving this information, Yudian's Legion insignia system would make some minor adjustments according to the laws of this world, making Yudian look more like a native warlock. New mission: Burning Lord's Trial. Let him hunt a large number of creatures equivalent to acolytes and obtain the Burning Lord's bloodline through a blood sacrifice ceremony. The so-called blood sacrifice ceremony was actually for Yudian to gather enough resources to exchange for the Burning Lord's bloodline that Liu had tinkered with. The system sent this Burning Lord's trial mission to the Legion insignia. Yudian was about to start a new round of killing monsters to level up. Since this mission had been assigned, Liu naturally had to tinker with the Burning Lord's bloodline. 3,000 ancient bloodlines, ancient gods, ancient demons, and ancient devils. This ancient devil bloodline is just right. The ancient demon that was split from the ancient Tao also had a huge body that could penetrate the heavens and the earth. It also had a powerful physical strength. Other than that, he also had a powerful innate ability that allowed him to control baleful yin and demonic qi. Isn't the so-called baleful yin energy the power of death? Wasn't the so-called demonic qi the power of darkness? As long as I add a fire-controlling ability to this bloodline, it will be a perfect burning overlord bloodline. Liu had already analyzed the ancient Tao bloodline, so it was very easy for him to create the so-called burning overlord bloodline. Ancient Devil is a descendant of the ancient race. Using Maoliang as a material is not enough. Liu glanced at the resource warehouse and let go of Maoliang. He turned his attention to the head of the immortal ancestor. Using a drop of the immortal ancestor's blood as the material, it can perfectly create the burning overlord bloodline. The immortals and the ancients were both the most powerful races in that world. In essence, they both originated from that world, so it was much easier for them to transform than it was for Maoliang, an immortal from another world. As the multicolored light flowed, the drop of immortal ancestors' blood went through a series of adjustments and turned into a ball of dark gold blood. The effect seems to be a bit too good. Seeing this ball of burning overlord bloodline, Liu realized that using a drop of the immortal ancestors' blood as the material was too high-end. Now, this bloodline had already surpassed the level of the original ancient devil and advanced to the level of the true ancient race. An ancient race with 3 innate abilities: darkness, death, and fire. This bloodline can't be too strong. Since he had already created it, it didn't matter whether it was strong or not. Anyway, he was going to bring disaster to this world. Wasn't it better to have a strong fighter? I also need to add a frightening background to this bloodline. With the appearance and body of the ancient race, Kil, Jaden and Arkarans both have octopus heads, and Manaroth is even less so. Liu smiled and shook his head. Dark Titan, Sargera's bloodline? Speaking of which, Titans are inorganic creatures and aren't made of flesh and blood. Do they have such things as bloodlines? Well, in fact, Liu had the final say in this matter. If he said that Titans had bloodlines, would Urien be able to capture a Titan and study it to prove that Titans didn't have bloodlines? Thus, even if Sargeras didn't have bloodlines, he had to have one. The Burning Overlord bloodline has been created, but there's still no sign of the Burning Legion. Liu stretched out his hand and took out a black and white crystal from the resource warehouse. This was the group of net puppets that Liu had sealed with the Taiji heavenly prison after attacking the heavens in the origin world. Billions of net puppets had been ruthlessly wiped out by Liu's army. 70 to 80% of them had been destroyed. The remaining ones were all pretty strong. There are still millions of net puppets here. A smile appeared on Liu's face as he held the crystal. Once Eurydion walks the path of the Burning Overlord and plans to go all out, these net puppets will be able to make their appearance. The Burning Legion, the Scourge Legion, and those legendary warriors that Liu had created. Moreover, Liu wouldn't be idle in the future. He would definitely create some messy things. When the war started, all kinds of messy origin powers would converge and clash. The core origin of the entire world would appear in front of Liu. When the time came, how to need it would depend on Liu's mood. So far, the overall layout is beginning to take shape. The rest is to play slowly. Play them to death. Play them until they're crippled. Liu looked up at the horizon and pursed his lips. You have to play this game even if you don't want to. With a wave of his hand, the newly created Burning Overlord bloodline was sent to the Legion insignia. At this time, Urien had also received a new mission. Legion Mission, Burning Overlord Trial. Burning Overlord isn't just a title. It is a symbol of noble bloodline and powerful strength. How can a mortal's bloodline match the identity of the Burning Overlord? Respected Sir Overlord, to become a true Burning Overlord, you have to undergo a bloodline sacrifice ceremony. From there, you will have a noble bloodline and possess the power to match the identity of the burning overlord. Mission objective: kill 100 level 3 apprentice adepts and sacrifice their flesh and soul to obtain the blazing overlord's bloodline. System notification: the more creatures sacrificed, the stronger they are and the higher the grade of the bloodline obtained. The highest grade burning overlord bloodline is Dark Titan bloodline, Polluter bloodline, Deceiver bloodline, and Destroyer bloodline. Hiss! Seeing these system notifications, Urian sucked in a breath of cold air. Urian wasn't surprised that there was a blood sacrifice. The Burning Legion was infamous. If there wasn't a blood sacrifice, Urian would find it abnormal. However, the highest grade bloodline actually belonged to the Legion boss? Once he obtained this bloodline, how strong would he be? Sorry. These 2 days the author, his wife and children all caught a cold. Every day, he was in the hospital receiving infusions. He originally planned to continue his outburst, but he was powerless. Chapter 481. Since I'm called Udian, I'm ready to embark on the path of Egyi. The guy who was originally called Udian and later Illidan, as a dark elf, obtained the demon bloodline and transformed into a powerful demon. I've been imprisoned for 10,000 years, you're courting death. Udian thought of the figure with 2 daggers, 2 demon horns on his head, huge demon wings on his back, and surging demon flames all over his body. Udian's heart actually felt a bit of eagerness. In this world, I am Udian. Udian clenched his fists tightly, and a trace of fire flashed in his eyes. In this world where power determines everything, so what if I have the power of a demon? The Burning Lord conquers a world. This is my path. Udian raised his head and determined his future path. I've already arrived at the west coast of the Magus continent. The most important thing now is to understand the environment here. Only after gathering enough information can we decide what to do next. During this period of experience, Udian had matured a lot, and his mentality was gradually getting closer to that of a Magus. Main mission: the path of a Magus. Arrived at the west coast of the Magus continent. The second step of the mission has been completed. The third step of the mission has been activated. Mission objective: enter any Magus Academy. To understand everything about the Magus world, is there any better way than to go deep into the Magus world? At this time, a new system prompt sounded in Udian's mind. This mission is very much in line with my plans. Uridian had originally planned to learn more about the world of adepts so that he could carry out his next move. This mission of entering a Magus Academy was very suitable. If I want to enter a Magus Academy, I'm afraid it will be a bit troublesome. It was impossible for a Magus of unknown origin to gain the other party's trust. With the character of those magi, if they delivered themselves to the door, they would be killed by the Magus and then used as experimental material. It was simply inevitable. My current strength is much stronger than a rank 3 apprentice, but I'm definitely not an official Magus. My strength, what level is it? Udian looked at his own warlock rank of 5. He had no concept of the level division in the game system and could not correspond to the strength system of the Magus world. The Legion emblem has recorded the power system of the current world's adept. Do you wish to adjust the classification according to the power system of the adept world? Just when Julian was a little distressed, the system very considerately gave him a new function. You can adjust your rank according to the Magus system? That's great. Fix it immediately. Julian quickly activated the so-called level correction function. The sorcerer's power level has been recorded. The level adjustment has been completed. So fast. Uridian quickly opened the system interface and saw that a new description had been added to the level column in the character interface. Class: Warlock. Level: 5. Wizard level: None. Nothing? Are you kidding me? Seeing the none on the character interface, Yudian was stunned. Is this the level adjustment? Are you kidding me? What happened to the level adjustment? What happened to referencing the power system of the adepts? A single none was enough? Because the host has never cultivated the basic meditation technique, the host has never constructed a willpower rune in his mind. According to the system of the sorcerer world, the host does not possess a sorcerer rank. The explanation given by the system was very reasonable, and Julian felt a little speechless. His power came from the Legion emblem. Even the secret swordsman was included in the inscription system. These powers were not in the sorcerer system. Although his strength was tyrannical, and although he could kill level 3 apprentices like cutting melons and vegetables, under the sorcerer system, Julian was still an ordinary person. So, can I blend in with the apprentices? According to this situation, as long as Julian did not actively cast spells, no one would know that he could cast spells. He was completely an ordinary person. An ordinary person with a strong aptitude. In this way, I can enter the Sorcerer Academy in the name of an apprentice. Thinking of the group of apprentices he met on the Answer Grassland, Julian immediately thought that this must be the enrollment season of the Sorcerer Academy. So, there must be people from the Sorcerer Academy at the port of the west coast of the Sorcerer Continent. Julian raised his head and glanced at the seemingly shabby port. His heart trembled slightly, and he raised his vigilance. The ship he took was just passing by, and it had left long ago. No one on the west coast port could recognize him. The rose's thorn was stored in the storage space, and the pet ghost had been unsummoned. Julian thought carefully and found that he had not given himself away, so he walked into the port with a blank face. "Hey, kid, come here." As soon as he walked into the port, a figure shrouded in a black robe, whose face could not even be seen, shouted loudly at Julian. "You called me." Julian pretended to be ignorant and looked at the black-robed man with a dull face. His body shrank, and he seemed to be a little timid. "If not you, then who?" The black-robed man waved at Julian unhappily. "Hurry up and come here." Yudian had an honest look on his face as he nodded and walked over to the black-robed man. However, he was secretly prepared to deal with any unforeseen circumstances and was ready to explode and hurt people at any time. "You're a new apprentice? Why are you alone? Where did you come from? Why did you take the Enya Ivory Ring Tower ship?" The black-robed man asked Julian a series of questions. I'm from the Ruden Kingdom. What's the Enya Ivory Ring Tower? I don't know. The ship I boarded from the port of Luya was the one Prince Carson arranged for me. Julian was still confused, and he answered in a timid manner. The Ruden Kingdom? The black-robed man muttered to himself, as if trying to figure out what this Ruden Kingdom was. "Oh, it's the Chernobyl Islands." The black-robed man thought for a while and finally figured out what this Ruden Kingdom was. However, the black-robed man was even more surprised. "Aren't the Light Magi recruiting acolytes at the Chernobyl Islands this year?" "Kid, the Wetland Gardens of the Enya Ivory Ring Tower is recruiting acolytes at the Chernobyl Islands this year. You took the Enya Ivory Ring Tower ship, so why did they let you disembark in Shadow's Nest territory?" The black-robed man seemed to scan Julian a few times. Those hypocritical light magi from the Enya Ivory Ring Tower were willing to put aside their pride and leave you here. "What's so strange about you, kid?" The black-robed man took out a crystal ball and handed it to Julian. "Kid, since you're here, you're a member of Shadow's Nest. Come, test it. Focus your attention on the crystal ball. If you pass, you can become an acolyte. Then, what if I don't pass?" Julian reached out to take the crystal ball and asked the black-robed man in a seemingly uneasy manner. "Don't pass?" The black-robed man suddenly let out a strange cackle. "Kid, this is Shadow's Nest. This is the bloody and terrifying stronghold of the Dark Magi. *1. Asterisk at this moment, the crystal ball in Julian's hand emitted a dazzling light. Pitch-black shadows and raging flames rose from the crystal ball into the sky, forming a huge scene of dark flames in midair. "This is you," the black-robed man let out a strange cry. "Truth above, what am I seeing? Are you the child of darkness? Are you the one favored by darkness and destruction?" Chapter 482. No wonder. No wonder. The black-robed man shouted in horror. "No wonder the people from Enia Ivory Ring Tower threw you down. Your essence of darkness and destruction is completely incompatible with them." The black-robed man automatically added a reasonable explanation for Julian. In fact, Julian had only revealed his imp's fire arrow spell, and had boarded the Enia Ivory Ring Tower's ship as a magus. After hearing from the people of Enia Ivory Ring Tower that this was the base of the Shadow's Nest, the territory of the Dark Magi, Julian had chosen this place without hesitation. The land of the Dark Magi was a bloody place. For someone like Julian who mainly killed monsters to level up, this was naturally the most suitable place. Am I considered qualified? Julian raised the crystal ball, and asked the black-robed man timidly. "Qualified? You're really qualified?" The black-robed man laughed and took the crystal ball. He reached out and patted Julian's shoulder. "Kid, you were born to be a member of our Shadow's Nest. Spiritual force is 5th grade, elemental affinity is 5th grade, and your innate affinity with the shadow and fire elements is really suitable." Phew, Julian heaved a sigh of relief. "It's good that I'm qualified." In fact, it would be difficult for Julian to fail. With his 17 points of spiritual force, he had already exceeded the standard of a rank 3 acolyte by more than half. Furthermore, he had obtained the shadow and fire abilities after becoming a warlock. How bad could his elemental affinity be? "Let's go. I'll bring you to meet the others." Without waiting for Julian to reply, the black-robed man pulled Julian and walked towards the port. "My name is Hans. I'm a rank 1 Dark Magus from Shadow's Nest. I'm in charge of this year's acolyte recruitment." "Right, what's your name?" the black-robed Hans asked Julian as he walked. Julian Stormrage." Julian replied, but in his heart he was laughing. "I'm not called Illidan Stormrage. This isn't considered an impersonation." "Stormrage? That's a strange surname." The black-robed Hans laughed dryly. "Kid, with your current aptitude, as long as you don't die too early, it won't be difficult for you to become an official magus. However, a genius needs to be alive to be considered a genius. Once you're dead, you're nothing." "You mean, there are still dangers in the Shadow's Nest Sorcerer Academy?" Julian was pretending to be an idiot again. The path of a magus is fraught with danger. What was the difference between inside and outside the academy? Therefore, he had to be careful, and even more careful. Only by living long can you go far. The black-robed Hans removed the hood covering his head, revealing an extremely terrifying face. This face was covered with holes like a beehive. Even the eyes, nose, and mouth were almost indistinguishable. What was even more frightening was that tiny black snakes were emerging from these beehive-like holes. These black snakes hissed and stuck out their tongues. The terrifying scene made one's scalp go numb. "Hiss," Julian took a deep breath. He now had a deeper understanding of the power of wizard. "It's scary, right?" The black-robed Hans laughed dryly. He lowered his cloak and covered his face again. "This is the price of carelessness. When I was an apprentice like you, I was accidentally used as a test subject by a magus. Then my face became like this. Even if I later became an official magus, even if I extracted the soul of the magus who used me as a test subject and tortured him for hundreds of years, I would never be able to recover my original appearance. Of course, I was lucky because I didn't die. As for those who died, I don't know how many there were." The black-robed Hans laughed coldly. "Why are you telling me this? Julian stopped and looked up at the black-robed Hans. Good question. Although you look young, you're not stupid. That's good. You should know that idiots don't live long. The black-robed Hans seemed to be very satisfied with Julian's performance. I'm not telling you this because I'm kind. This is a deal. What do you want from me? Julian was very clear that with everything he had shown, the only thing worth paying attention to was his aptitude. So, was the black-robed Hans investing? I need you to do me a favor in the future. The black-robed Hans pointed at his face. If you can become an official magus, I need you to set your first innate spell as darkness purification. Then, you can use the darkness purification spell to remove the hidden dangers in my body. Why do I need to use an innate spell to remove it? Julian still didn't quite understand what an innate spell was. Because an innate spell is a magus' strongest spell. But darkness purification is a non-offensive and non-defensive spell. No magus would set it as an innate spell. This is the deal I'm making with you. Then what do I get? Julian naturally wasn't willing to listen to someone else's arrangements. Even if he didn't know what an innate spell was, it was definitely very important to a magus. If an auxiliary spell was set as an innate spell, it would definitely affect his future. You can live. I'll protect you until you become an official magus. You have to know that even if your aptitude isn't ordinary, the number of geniuses who died in Shadow's Nest isn't just 1 or 2. The black-robed Hans turned his head to look at Julian and laughed coldly. For you, this should be the most important issue. Even if it will affect you in the future, once you become a rank 2 magus, it won't be a problem. All right. Julian agreed without hesitation, but he sneered in his heart. Wait until I become an official magus? By the time I become an official magus, you won't be my opponent anymore. Whether or not I give you the darkness purification spell will depend on me. Very good. The black-robed Hans seemed to be very happy. He reached into his bosom and took out a scroll. After opening it, he displayed it in front of Julian. This is a contract witnessed by the trial's eye. Once it's signed, no one can violate it. Contract? Julian hadn't expected this question. He'd originally planned to just deal with it, but the black-robed Hans' actions made this deal a contract that had to be completed. This made Julian a little unhappy. However, in the current situation, an official magus wasn't someone Julian could go against. This matter was a little difficult to handle. Can the Legion emblem deal with this kind of contract? A system prompt. The Legion emblem has Deceiver's blessing. No contract can restrict the actions of the Burning Overlord. It can be like this? Just as Julian was pondering, the Legion emblem gave him a prompt. This prompt allowed Julian to heave a sigh of relief. I agree. With the guarantee of the Legion emblem, Julian was at ease as he signed the contract. Under the witness of the trial's eye, the contract is established. The scroll turned into flames, and a pair of cold and strict golden eyes appeared in the sky. An indescribable force rushed out from those eyes and entered the bodies of Julian and the black-robed Hans. The rules of the contract have been discovered. The Legion emblem has begun to counter. The Deceiver's blessing has been activated. The rules of the contract have been erased. A formless wave swept across, and the power of the contract's rules instantly disappeared. In fact, the rules of the contract had already fallen into the hands of Liu. Chapter 483. Trial's Eye, the Law of Contracts? Although the Army insignia system looked different, it was still Liu's scheme. Wasn't the storage space of the Army insignia the system's resource vault? The Law of Contracts from the Trial's Eye landed on Julian and was immediately collected by the resource vault before being sent to Liu. Trial's Eye is a creature equivalent to a rank 7 magus and has grasped the power of laws. However, its Law of Contracts is different from that of the magus world, and is more similar to the laws of the world of God. In this crystal wall system, the Magus world used the elements as its foundation, and all laws came from the origin of matter. The world of gods was the exact opposite, and all power came from the origin of order. The law of contracts of the trials I was an extension of the origin of order in the world of gods, and was not like the power of the Magus world. The world of gods and the Magus world have been at war for countless years, and their powers have converged. It's not strange for a different system of power to appear. There were gods in the world of gods who had switched to the path of magi. There were also magi who wanted to become gods in the Magus world. This sort of small-scale convergence of power was what the wills of the two planes were happy to see. This was because they could absorb each other's laws. This trial's eye is probably an experimental product under the control of the Magus world's will, right? Of course, whether or not it was an experimental product, Liu did not care. System, analyze the law of contracts and record it into the resource vault. Although he was still in the Magus world, Liu would definitely make a move on the world of gods. Grasping the laws of the world of gods in advance would be more advantageous for Liu in the future. The foundation of the law of contracts is forced execution. The so-called fairness and justice are all superficial. Without forced execution, fairness and justice cannot be guaranteed. Liu looked at the law of contracts that had been broken down in the resource vault, and a thought flashed through his mind. Fairness and justice, it seems like this thing can be played with? The Burning Legion had appeared, and so had the Calamity Legion. Then, should the Silver Hand Knights begin their preparations? Liu was very familiar with the Holy Seal of Impartiality in the past. So, may the Holy Light fool you. A spot of platinum light shone in Liu's hand. In the Marquis Champion's world, the Western Region Essence Temple had a sacred light technique. Liu had used this spell as a foundation and combined it with the light datura to deduce the concept of holy light. With this foundation and Liu's current strength, as long as he made some adjustments according to the rules of the current world, be it the Silver Hand, the Silver Northern Expedition, or even the Morning Wind Legion of the Blood Elves, they could all be recreated. Paladins are more suitable in the world of gods. After all, the religious style of the Holy Knights is more obvious, and it is very difficult to survive in the sorcerer world. Liu had already made a plan to head to the world of gods in the future. At this moment, the seeds he had planted in the Magus world had already sprouted. Red Moss Highlands. What? You want to raise the hiring price? A sinister-looking middle-aged man in a Magus's robe stared coldly at the muscular Red Moss Highland warrior in front of him and raised his chin arrogantly. A bunch of lowly barbarians. The sinister-looking man snorted disdainfully. To be hired by a noble Magus is your fortune and your glory. I have the right to recruit a group of guards for free. You barbarians dare to raise the price with me? Do you want to die? Countless fire elemental particles condensed, and a ball of dark red flames appeared in the sinister-looking man's hand. If you want to die, I will grant you death. You are not a Magus, just an acolyte. A tall and muscular Red Moss Highland warrior stepped forward with a calm expression, his dense aura as heavy as a mountain. More importantly, we are not lowly barbarians. The warriors of the Red Moss Highlands are warriors blessed by the god of war. You should not insult the warriors of the god of war. The Red Moss Highland warrior reached out and grabbed his heavy battle-axe. Even in the face of the acolyte's spell, he did not cower. God of war? What a joke! A ridiculous illusion, only barbarians like you would treat it as a god. The strange situation in the Red Moss Highlands had attracted many acolytes from nearby countries to investigate. Although the hall was strange, the acolytes did not discover any elemental energy from the war god's temple. Hence, the so-called god of war was a hoax. The dignity of the god of war is not to be blasphemed. The acolyte's words infuriated the Red Moss Highland warrior. With a furious roar, the red moss Highland warrior waved the battle-axe in his hand. You dare resist? You are courting death. The acolyte felt offended, and his sinister-looking face was filled with a ruthless rage. The flames in his hands were hurled at the red moss Highland warrior. This was not a spell, but merely a gathering of elemental particles to trigger an elemental attack. Although it was not even a rank 0 spell, it was unstoppable against ordinary people who had no elemental resistance. Boom. Elemental particles shot out from the acolyte's hands like tongues of fire. The scorching flames were able to melt gold and iron, and were not something ordinary people could withstand. However, the legendary warriors created by Li Yu were no longer ordinary people. With the power of the earth as their foundation, every legendary warrior's body was like the thick and solid earth. The mere impact of elemental particles was unable to cause any damage to a legendary warrior. Crescent Moon Slash. In the raging flames, a tall and muscular figure rushed out, raising the heavy battle-axe high and slashing down heavily. The power of metal exploded on the battle-axe, and a 3-meter-long platinum crescent moon cut through the flames and tore through the air. Under everyone's horrified gazes, the red moss Highland warrior's battle-axe cleaved the acolyte into 2 halves. Boom. The crescent moon blade did not lose its momentum. After killing the acolyte, even the walls and pillars behind him were flattened by this attack. This is the red moss Highland warrior killed a magus? How is this possible? In a country like the Chernobyl Islands, apprentice adepts were already the most powerful force. Most people did not know that they were merely acolytes, and instead called them magi. In the minds of the people of this world, the power of magi was extremely terrifying and unstoppable. No one had ever thought that there would be a day when a warrior could face a magus head-on, or that a warrior could defeat a magus. Now, this shocking scene was unfolding before everyone's eyes, and they were at a loss for what to do. It was simply unbelievable. Hot blood. Glory. The red moss Highland warrior raised the battle-axe in his hands and roared towards the sky. At this moment, no one dared to underestimate the power of a warrior. Chapter 484. City in the Sky, Tower of Truth. In this Magus continent's Temple of Knowledge, countless magi came to study every day. Downloading information. Data transfer complete. In front of the terminal, a middle-aged magus was using a crystal ball to download the information he needed. It's too difficult for a rank 3 magus to advance to a rank 4 Morning Star magus. Without a high-grade meditation technique, I'm afraid it'll be difficult for me to advance. The middle-aged magus sighed and reached out to retrieve the crystal ball. Just as he grabbed the crystal ball, the middle-aged magus unintentionally glanced at the terminal's interface. With this glance, the middle-aged magus almost cried out in surprise. Sovereign of the Eventide Meditation Technique? A top-grade meditation technique? The Tower of Truth even released this information? Is this an accident? Or is it luck? The middle-aged magus suppressed the excitement in his heart and hurriedly pretended as if nothing had happened. Rank 4 and above require magic crystals? Compared to a top-grade meditation technique, what were magic crystals worth? The middle-aged magus paid a large sum of magic crystals without hesitation and downloaded the complete Sovereign of the Eventide meditation technique. You're very lucky, magus. This is Lord Seer's reward. After the middle-aged magus finished downloading the Sovereign of the Eventide meditation technique, a string of words flashed on the terminal's interface. The Sovereign of the Eventide meditation technique displayed on the terminal also disappeared in an instant. Reward? Did some big shot take a fancy to me? Lord Seers? Who exactly is this big shot? The middle-aged magus was pleasantly surprised and trembled with excitement. He hurriedly kept the crystal ball and hurriedly left the Tower of Truth. The same scene happened many times in the Tower of Truth. Countless lucky people received Lord Sears's reward. Then, Liyu's orthodox Taoism spell naturally spread. The Calamity Troop was about to be born. At this time, Julian officially entered the Magus Academy. This is the Shadow's Nest. Setting off from the port, Julian followed the black-robed Hans all the way. Through an underground teleportation formation, Julian and Hans arrived at a grotesque underground world. In front of them were patches of luminous moss and all sorts of luminous fungi. Under the illumination of the light blue fluorescence, the underground space, densely packed with stalagmites and grotesque rocks, appeared in front of Julian. This is underground? Looking at the different scenery around him, Julian was a little shocked. We, the Shadow's Nest, are the dark magi forces that guard the underground world. The black-robed Hans led Julian through a valley made of glowing moss. They came to a dark and smelly pool in the underground valley. Voila! When the two of them arrived at the edge of the pool, the waves in the pool churned, and a ferocious and terrifying huge snake head emerged from the pool. Hans, you're back so soon? Is there another newcomer? A pair of amber snake eyes glanced at the two of them. They felt a cold and slippery touch, as if a tongue covered in mucus had licked them. The truth is supreme, and the shadow is eternal. A black rune appeared in the black-robed Hans' hand, and he waved his hand at the huge snake. All right. Open the door. Hans, you're still so impatient. The giant snake shook its head, then opened its huge mouth full of sharp fangs. Rumble! The space shook violently, and a cloud of thick black fog suddenly burst out from the huge snake's huge mouth. A huge black door slowly opened in the black fog. This is the gatekeeper, Close. The door to the Shadow's Nest is in close mouth. Let's go in. Hans pointed at the black door, turned his head, and said to Julian. He then led Julian through the door and arrived at the real Shadow's Nest. The hot magma river meandered, reflecting a dark red color in the entire space. In the middle of the magma river, there was a huge black tower that towered into the clouds. Countless buildings stood around the huge black tower. This is the real Shadow's Nest, the place where shadows and flames converge. After crossing the stone bridge over the magma river, Julian entered the buildings around the huge tower and officially entered the Shadow's Nest. Main mission: the third step of the path of Magi completed. Stepping into the Shadow's Nest, the system prompt sounded in Julian's mind again. According to the rules of the Shadow's Nest, as an official magus, I have the right to recruit apprentices to become my disciples. So, from now on, you are my disciple. Hans brought Julian to a 4-story attic. This is my residence and also where you will live from now on. Julian walked into the attic and found that there were various bottles and jars in the attic. There were all kinds of materials on the shelves. That is potioneering, Hans explained to Julian. As a magus, if you have talent in potioneering, then your path of growth will be much smoother. However, potioneering is not that easy to learn. I am quite interested in potioneering, Julian said to Hans in an indifferent tone. However, Julian's heart was not calm. This was because he found that on the game interface, a life skill called alchemy had been displayed. Herbology, which was compatible with alchemy, was displayed at the same time. Alchemy, herbology, I am afraid I will need to obtain the magus potioneering knowledge to be able to truly unlock them. As for the potioneering talent that Hans mentioned, Julian did not care at all. With the game system, talent and whatnot could be ignored long ago. You are interested in potioneering? Hans looked at Julian in surprise and nodded. That's fine. I can teach you potioneering knowledge. However, you must ensure the speed of advancement. 10 years. I will only give you 10 years. You must become an official magus within 10 years. 10 years? No problem. With the game system in hand, Julian would not be willing to take 10 years to become an official magus. Remember your words. Hans glanced at Yudian indifferently and then pointed to the bookshelf in front of him. There is potioneering knowledge there. Most of the knowledge of the Magus apprentice stage is there. I can provide it to you for free. Remember, 10 years. You better not slip up. No problem. Yudian agreed and then walked towards the bookshelf. I hope you won't disappoint me. Hans nodded. You can't go to the 4th floor. You can go to the 1st to 3rd floors as you wish. However, don't touch anything carelessly. Magi's things are very dangerous. I know. Yudian replied casually. His mind was on the bookshelf. Willpower Rune Construction Rule, Shadow Element Level 0 Spell List, Magus Apprentice Fire Spells, Basics of Potioneering, Basics of Rune Literature, Basic Spell Structure Analysis. Yudian's gaze swept across the bookshelf, and a prompt sounded in his mind. Discovered Magus System Knowledge. Do you want to accept it? Accept. With a command, Yudian found that in the system interface, various knowledge skills had appeared. I can learn all the knowledge in an instant with just a click? This is too convenient. Chapter 485. Asterisk whoosh. Asterisk the dark golden rapier flashed with a cold light, and an underground terror claw beast wailed, and fell to the ground, dead. Yudian's face was gloomy as he lifted Rose's thorn. He looked up at the terror claw beasts coming from all directions, and the anger in his eyes intensified. Come out, brat! He waved his hand, and the light from the summoning circle flowed. The brat with sharp fangs and claws screamed as it rushed out of the circle. Flame arrows with raging flames swept through the surroundings, killing all the terror claw beasts. Sure enough, the Wizard Academy is more dangerous than the outside world. Yudian sneered in his heart. If not for my strength exceeding their expectations, I'm afraid I would have died this time. It had been a month since he came to the Shadow's Nest. Even though Yudian kept a low profile, the news of his superior aptitude still spread unknowingly. When Yudian received the Academy's mission to clean up the Terror Claw beasts, he happened to encounter a Terror Claw beast riot. An army of thousands of Terror Claw beasts, even a level 3 apprentice would not be able to resist. If not for Yudian's tyrannical strength, he would have suffered a great loss this time. If there's no problem, then there's something fishy. Yudian snorted coldly. For any wizard apprentice, it's a habit to kill those who are more talented than themselves to eliminate their competitors. But this time, I came out just in time to complete the Burning Lord's trial. Although only a few of the thousands of Terror Claw beasts had the strength of an apprentice, it was still a big harvest. At least his experience had increased by a lot. In the underground world, there were all kinds of strange races, and there were also many terrifying existences. However, in the vicinity of the Shadow's Nest, official sorcerers usually did not dare to come to their deaths. The rest of the apprentice beasts were the test subjects of the Shadow's Nest's apprentices. After cleaning up the Terror Claw beasts with the help of the brat, Yudian continued to go deeper into the underground world. The Burning Lord's trial required Yudian to kill hundreds of creatures equivalent to apprentice sorcerers as sacrifices. Therefore, Yudian still had to work hard. Asterisk rumble. Asterisk when Yudian came out of an underground karst cave, he suddenly heard a loud noise in front of him. Looking up, he saw a huge beast more than 10 meters long like a drake on a huge plain in front of him. It let out a loud roar, swinging its long tail and crazily whipping around. Molten Drake. Level 10 Leader. Level 1 Wizard. When Yudian's eyes fell on the Earth Dragon, his heart skipped a beat when he saw the information displayed by the system. Level 10 Drake? This is a Level 3 Wizard Level 10 Drake, Yudian. I can't deal with this thing during this period of time. Julian had collected a lot of information in the Shadow's Nest. He now had a clear understanding of the strength of an official magus. An official sorcerer's spiritual force and magic power far exceeded that of an acolyte. More importantly, an official sorcerer possessed innate spells. This innate spell was an innate ability. It didn't consume magic power, but only physical strength. Moreover, there was no casting time. They were all instant spells. A wizard's innate spell was usually a defensive spell. With this defensive spell, any power below the level of a wizard would not be able to break through the defense and could be completely ignored. This was the foundation of a wizard's strength. Level 10 wizards generally don't dare to enter the territory near the Shadow's Nest. Why would this molten earth dragon appear here? And why does it look like it's angry? Udian lay behind a rock and carefully stared ahead, not daring to make any noise. Rumble. Rumble. The drake roared, its huge tail sweeping around, its nostrils snorting, and sparks flashing from time to time. The drake is fighting with something. But I can't see the creature fighting with the drake. Udian observed for a while and found the problem. Invisibility? Or stealth? Udian suddenly became a little envious. Whether it was invisibility or stealth, they were very useful to Udian. Roar! At this time, a huge wound suddenly opened on the molten drake's neck, and hot magma-like blood spurted out. Roar! The molten drake opened its huge mouth, and the raging flames spurted out like a raging tide, sweeping the surrounding space. Damn it! Its talent is actually lava spitting. At this time, there was a sudden roar near the molten drake. The space shook slightly, and a figure exuding a black mist appeared in the flames. The drake's flames were very powerful. The black figure was attacked by the flames and seemed to be seriously injured. It screamed and fled. Roar! The molten drake roared, and its huge dragon tail swept out fiercely. Boom! The figure that had just emerged from the flames was immediately hit by this attack. The tyrannical force directly sent the black figure flying, and it hit the stone pillar in the ground. Coincidentally, the stone pillar that the black figure hit was where Udian was hiding. There's someone here? An apprentice? The figure exuding black mist immediately discovered Udian's existence. I can just use you as bait. The black figure turned over and climbed up, reaching out to grab Udian. A cold force was emitted from the black figure's hand. This was a touch of weakness spell. This black figure was an official wizard. With his strength, even if he cast a level 0 spell, it was not something that an apprentice could resist. Unfortunately, Udian was not an ordinary apprentice. Corrosion. A dark green halo rushed out from his hand, and the instantaneous corrosion hit the black figure hard. To Udian's surprise, his corrosion fell on the black figure and had a great effect. A white eye emerged, and the black figure screamed. The flesh and blood of the black figure were constantly corroded under the strong acid of the corrosion. This Magus. Could it be that his innate spell isn't defense, but invisibility? Udian's heart skipped a beat, but the movements of his hands did not stop. Gale burst stab. Shadow. The figure burst out, and the rose's thorn burst out a string of light. The blade condensed with dark power broke through the air like lightning. Puff! The blade pierced through the skull, and the Magus died in an instant. Discovered Burning Lord's trial offering. Do you accept it? Accept. Udian's trip this time was for the Burning Lord's trial. Naturally, he would not let go of an official Magus. In fact, this Magus' death was very sullen. It was not that he did not have an innate defensive spell. His innate spell was a compound spell that allowed him to become invisible, and it also had defensive capabilities. However, he had just been hit by the lava spit and tail sweep of the Earth Dragon, and his innate defense had been broken. He had wanted to use Udian as bait in order to buy some time for his innate spell to recover. Acolytes were powerless in front of Magi. Unfortunately, he had met Udian, an existence that did not conform to the rules. Hence this was a tragedy. Chapter 486. Roar! Just as he killed the wizard who was careless, the molten drake rushed over. The molten earth dragon's huge body rumbled as it came crashing down. Even though the huge wound on its neck was still bleeding, the molten earth dragon's might was still tyrannical. Boom! Boom! The heavy giant claws stepped on the ground, and the huge force made the ground shake. Imp attack. The molten drake was equivalent to the official wizard level. Even if it was injured, Udian's current strength could not compete with it. The right way to deal with it was to use Imp's flame arrow to attract its attention and Udian to attack from the side. Gulp! Imp shrieked, and a flaming arrow shot out from his hand, smashing towards the molten earth dragon. Boom! The flame arrow slammed heavily into the molten earth dragon, bursting into a raging flame. Although the flame arrow did not do much damage to the molten drake, which was also of the fire attribute, but it succeeded in attracting the attention of the molten drake. Roar! The earth dragon turned around and charged at Imp. The opportunity is here. Imp attracted the molten drake's hatred, which created an opportunity for Udian to attack. As a game expert, the tactic of a meat shield attracting hatred was simply common sense. Although Imp was not a meat shield from any point of view, it was enough. Corrosion! The dark green strong acid smashed into the wound on the drake's neck. The strong acid corroded and the white mist billowed. The molten drake's scales were very strong in defense. It was not much worse than the wizard's innate defensive spells. However, the magus had left a huge wound on the earth dragon's neck. The flesh on the wound was not protected by the scales, which was the weakness of the defense. Ouch! The molten drake let out a mournful howl. It trembled in pain and fell to the ground. Boom! The huge body hit the ground heavily, and the ground shook violently. Take advantage of its illness and kill it. Shadow arrow. Corrosion. Flame arrow. Eurydian and the imp joined hands and shot a few spells at the wound on the earth dragon's neck as if they were shooting at a stationary target. Dark corrosion and flame explosion. All that was left of the earth dragon's neck was a corroded, blackened neck bone. An offering has been discovered. Do you wish to collect it? Crawling Dragon took his last breath, and the system notification came as scheduled. Collect. An invisible wave swept over, and the huge body of the earth dragon disappeared. 2 level 1 magus offerings have been collected. Mission exceeded expectations. Burning Overlord's trial completed. Your Excellency Burning Overlord, you already have the qualifications to inherit the Burning Overlord's bloodline. Do you wish to submit the offerings to complete the bloodline inheritance ceremony? A series of system prompts rang in Udian's mind. You've completed the mission? Udian was stunned for a moment, but he immediately understood. Regardless of whether it was the invisible magus or the molten drake, they were both official rank 1 magi. With the two added together, they definitely exceeded the standard of 100 acolyte. Burning the Overlord's bloodline? I've finally reached this step. Julian clenched his fist. He knew very well that once he took this step, he would never be able to turn back. The Burning Legion was not a charity organization. Illidan, that traitor, would end up holed up in the Dark Temple and be taken care of by countless adventurers. In this world, there is no way to survive without power. Even if I have to work with demons, at least I can survive and live a comfortable life. Udian took a deep breath. The path of the Burning Overlord will bring nightmares and destruction to the world. But so what? Come on then. Boom! The moment Udian made his decision, countless runes condensed from shadows and flames flowed under his feet, forming a huge array. In a flash, the bodies of the magus and the earth dragon flew out from the storage space and floated above the array. As the brilliance intertwined and flowed, the bodies of the magus and the earth dragon turned into scarlet blood and merged into the array. Rumble! Overwhelming shadows and flames surged, and Udian only felt that he had entered an inexplicable space. In the endless flames and shadows, a ferocious demon with a vast aura flashed in front of him. as if matching the bloodline, the images of the demons flashed, and in the end, 3 huge figures appeared in front of Udian. Rule. An octopus-headed demon with a huge sword roared at the sky. Curse. Another octopus-headed demon with shadows surging screamed gloomily. Destroy. The demon with a double-headed spear roared. Archaron? Kill Jaden? Manaroth? Seeing these 3 figures, Udian opened his mouth wide and could not close it for a long time. The bloodline of the Burning Overlord has actually reached the peak? I can actually inherit the bloodline of these 3 leaders? Udian was surprised and happy, but he was also somewhat hesitant. Who should I choose? This is a bit difficult to choose. The bloodlines of the 3 leaders were definitely very powerful, but they represented 3 different paths. Archaron's rule corresponded to the Warlock's path, which must be a demon warlock who specialized in summoning. Kill Jaden's cursed path was naturally the Pain Warlock, and Manarotha's destruction path represented the Destruction Warlock. 3 different specializations meant that there were 3 different paths to take. This made it difficult for Udian to choose. Each path is very powerful. I'm a bit reluctant. How good would it be if I could choose all 3 paths? Udian secretly sighed and thought greedily. Rumble. At this moment, the scene in front of him changed again. Dark shadows and raging flames that blotted out the sky rose up, and the scene in front of him shook violently. A figure that was incomparably huge appeared, as if it was a giant that reached the heavens and the earth. I am Sargeras. The huge giant opened a pair of huge eyes that were surging with flames and stared at Udian as if he could see through his soul. His mighty voice boomed like thunder. New Burning Overlord, I am satisfied with your offerings. A Magus plane is worth conquering. I will bestow upon you the bloodline of the Titans. New Burning Overlord, spread the name of the army throughout this world. The huge giant slapped his chest, and a ball of dark golden blood flew out and plunged into Udian's body. It was as if hot magma had erupted in his body. Udian roared wildly, only feeling that his entire body was burning. Shadows and flames, blood and soul. New Burning Overlord, I will bestow upon you the authority to rule, the power of curses, and the power of destruction. The vast voice exploded in Udian's mind like thunder. The overwhelming shadow and the raging flames drowned Udian. A demon that terrified all living beings and made the world tremble was about to be born. The eruption ended, and the original update time was restored. 8 o'clock in the morning, 12 o'clock at noon, 6 o'clock in the evening. Chapter 487. Dark shadows and raging flames surged. The monstrous blood light flowed and formed a huge blood cocoon, wrapping Udian's whole body in it. A complete transformation was born in the blood cocoon. Bang, bang, bang. The heavy heartbeat sounded like a war drum, and a huge boundless power was being nurtured and bred. Boom! The blood cocoon burst, and the raging flames surged. A 10-meter-tall figure with pitch-black flames all over his body walked out of the broken blood cocoon. He looked like a demon god. Is this the Dark Titan bloodline? It's really powerful. He reached out and clenched his fist. There was an explosion in his hand, as if the air in his hand had been crushed by a huge force. With a wave of his hand, the dark flames swept out like a wave. Everything around, including the rocks, turned into ashes in the black flames. Burning Overlord. I finally have a bit of the Burning Overlord's appearance now. The black flames surged, and Udian's body continued to shrink, turning back into an ordinary figure. The black flames converged, and Udian returned to his original state. It seemed that there was no change, and he was still the little apprentice. But, Burning Overlord bloodline inheritance completed. Attribute model is being corrected. Attribute model corrected. The system prompt sounded, and Udian quickly opened the attribute interface. True name, Udian. Race, Dark Titan. Title, Burning Overlord. Profession, Warlock. Level, 5. Model, Elite. Strength 13. 5. Vitality 13. 5. Agility 14. 4. Spirit 27, Magic 27. Seeing the information on the attribute interface, Udian was dumbfounded. All attributes plus 10? Elite model? With Udian's current attribute data, his spiritual force alone was not worse than a rank 1 magus. As for the body data, it was simply unbelievably strong. I'm afraid that only those naturally tyrannical higher life forms have such physical attribute. Even ordinary bloodline warlocks can't be this strong. Feeling the huge and boundless power in his body, Udian felt that this burning overlord bloodline was simply too powerful. There are changes in the spell interface? At this time, Udian found that there were a few icons flashing on the spell interface, and he quickly looked over. The Book of Control, Bloodline Talent. Sargeras gave him the right to rule. Burning overlords with this talent are born to be superior and can summon demons that are 1 rank higher than themselves. Cursed Devil Book, Bloodline Talent. The power of curses bestowed by Sargeras would double the power of the burning overlord's curses. Demonic Book of Destruction, Bloodline Latent Ability. Sargeras bestowed the power of destruction. Burning overlords with this talent will have the power of destruction doubled. Although Eurydian was mentally prepared, he still took a deep breath when he saw these 3 bloodline talents. Demon Control Tome can permanently summon demons that are 1 rank higher. With Udian's current power, he could summon a wizard-level ghost. As for the doubled power of curses and destruction spells, they were equally terrifying. With Udian's current power, he could summon a wizard-level ghost and do whatever he wanted. On the West Coast, magi who were rank 2 and above were extremely rare. Most of them were the leaders of various forces, and would not be dispatched unless there was an important matter. With Udian's current power, as long as he did not attack a wizard academy, he did not have to worry about his own safety. I can take this opportunity to raise my warlock level. Udian glanced at the dark underground space. Within 1,000 miles of the Shadow's Nest, there are places for apprentices to train. It's suitable for me to level up. Adjusting his dark red monk robe, Udian got up and walked towards the depths of the underground. After obtaining the Demon Control Tome, the summoned demons are 1 rank higher. What will the little ghost look like if it's summoned now? Udian chanted a spell, and the light of the summoning circle flowed. He summoned the ghost again. Gulp! With a strange cry, a dark red little ghost rushed out of the magic array. At this moment, the ghost was already very different. Its 2 feet tall figure had doubled in size, reaching 4 feet. Although it was still very short, its bulging muscles and sharp claws showed that the current imp was not weak even in close combat. Flame Arrow. Flame Impact. Phase Invisibility. The ghost already has 3 skills? More importantly, Permanent Summon? After Udian summoned the ghost, he found that not only did it have a few more skills, but it was now a permanent summon. In other words, the ghost would always be by Udian's side, and it would not automatically return when the spell's duration was over. That's not bad. With Phase Invisibility, the ghost could hide in Udian's shadow. It was equivalent to having a wizard-level power at all times. Udian took the ghost and picked up Rose's thorn. He plunged into the depths of the underground and began to fight monsters to level up. With the help of a wizard-level ghost and his own power, Julian would be able to sweep away everything in his way. Udian's side is already in order. Liu saw everything that happened to Udian through the system connection. He was very satisfied with the result. At present, the bloodline experiment on Udian was going smoothly. It seemed that there were no problems. Liu was too lazy to care about the rest. There are still a few existences in this world that are worthy of my attention. Liu's figure blended into space like a ripple of water. When he reappeared, He was already in front of a huge mountain range. The Crystal Mountain Range. This place is famous for producing witchcraft crystals. It is the target of several major forces. But the truly valuable thing here isn't the crystal at all. Liu raised his eyes and glanced at the Crystal Mountain Range. Soon, he found a spatial intersection. Reaching into the spatial intersection, Liu's figure seeped into space like flowing water. The ruins of Scarlet Crescent. When Liu reappeared, he was already in another part of the void. I don't care about the ruins of Scarlet Crescent. I'm just borrowing the path. Passing through a dead path in the ruins, he followed the path all the way to the end of space. There was a door there. A door that was invisible to the eyes of others. 232 World's End, Quark's hut. The law of the door? That's interesting. Liu extended his hand to grab the door constructed from nothingness. With a gentle pull, the door opened. Hey, who are you? Walking through the door, Liu saw an ordinary-looking wooden hut before him. However, the owner of the wooden hut was no ordinary person. It was a toad wearing a tall bucket hat and a tuxedo. A cigarette was dangling from its mouth, and it kept blowing out smoke rings. I'm just passing by. Just do as you please. Liu waved his hand and casually walked through Quark's hut to arrive at a space of nothingness. This was the end of the world. This was the apex of all space-time in this crystal wall system, the star plane. Liu was not interested in the star plane. What he was interested in was the towering object before him. It was so large that it seemed to be even larger than a plane. It was a tree. Hello, Wisdom Tree. This was Liu's goal. Chapter 488. The Wisdom Tree was the crystallization of all wisdom. It was rumored that the Wisdom Tree understood all the mysteries of the astral plane and the universe. There were even rumors that the earliest sorcerers had been inspired by the Wisdom Tree, which led to the creation of the sorcerer system. I don't think Magi were created by the Wisdom Tree. Magi must have been created by the plane's will. It's impossible for others to interfere with such things. Liu raised his head and looked at the enormous tree in front of him, a smile appearing on his face. No matter what, the Wisdom Tree is indeed worth my attention. You are calling me? A moment later, several large cracks appeared on the enormous tree trunk that stretched across the void. A pair of enormous eyes opened, and a huge mouth opened. The mighty voice stirred up a violent spatial storm. The entire space was shaking like a hurricane sweeping up. What a loud voice! This spatial storm obviously had no effect on Liu. Liu smiled and shook his head. How long has it been since you spoke to someone? Why are you stammering? My apologies. The Wisdom Tree shook its head in embarrassment, and then its enormous body stirred up the surrounding space, causing it to tremble violently. I just took a nap. According to the Magus world's time, it's about 70,000 years. After a few sentences, the Wisdom Tree became more fluent and no longer stammered. You are very powerful. Your Excellency, can an existence like you really be born in this crystal wall system? I've lived for countless years, and am already equivalent to a rank 8 Magus. However, I've never seen an existence of level 9 or above. The Wisdom Tree's dim yellow eyes looked at Liu suspiciously. According to my conjecture, only by devouring the origin of this crystal wall system can one advance to rank 9. However, you obviously didn't do that. Rank 9 doesn't need to devour the origin, and only needs to grasp the laws of space and time. However, to advance to rank 10, one needs the origin of the crystal wall system. Liu smiled and glanced at the Wisdom Tree. My path is based on myself, so there's no need to devour the origin. So that's how it is. When the Wisdom Tree heard Liu's hint, it immediately understood what a rank 9 Magus was. The power of a Magus is not completely controlled by his own body. A sorcerer could actually emit radiation that could affect ordinary people. For an existence like you to affect the outside world because of an unintentional action, this is very wrong. Liu shook his head. I have a power that is very suitable for you. You can try. Liu flicked his finger and sent the heavenly wood technique to the wisdom tree. The wisdom tree was an existence that had lived for countless years and grasped innumerable knowledge. From every angle, it was extremely valuable to Liu. World Tree Meditation Technique. Alright, the Heavenly Tree Technique, if translated into the language of this world, would become the World Tree Meditation Technique. Shock flashed through the wisdom tree's eyes, and then it was overjoyed. Boom! There was a sudden tremor in the void as green light bloomed and enveloped the entire space. You've learned it so quickly? Liu saw that the wisdom tree did not say anything and directly cultivated the heavenly wood technique, which surprised Liu. The more intelligent an existence was, the less hot-blooded and impulsive it was. The wisdom tree was very clear about the difference in strength between itself and Liu, and did not even think of resisting. Moreover, the technique that Liu gave seemed to have no problems at all. Time slowly passed, and the green qi released by the wisdom tree became denser. In the end, the entire void turned into a jade-green color. Boom! There was a loud sound that shook the void, and the green qi that filled the sky suddenly converged like a dragon sucking in water, disappearing without a trace in an instant. At the same time, the wisdom tree's boundless figure also disappeared. The wisdom tree greets the sovereign. An old man in a dark green robe appeared in front of Liu. His aura was completely restrained, as if he was an ordinary old man from next door. There was not the slightest trace of energy fluctuations. Not bad. You've cultivated it so quickly. Your countless years of accumulation can be considered to have come to fruition. The wisdom tree had switched to the heavenly wood technique, transforming itself into innate azure wood qi. It had cultivated this technique to the pinnacle and condensed the azure wood origin. Liu was very satisfied with the wisdom tree's performance. Even though he had added something to the heavenly wood technique and made the wisdom tree one of his own, Liu was still surprised by the wisdom tree's tremendous accumulation. Many thanks for the sovereign's bestowment. The wisdom tree discovered that its current strength was completely under its control, and there were no signs of it leaking out. The wisdom you've gathered over countless years is of great reference value to me. Liu smiled as he extended a finger and gently tapped the wisdom tree's forehead. System, copy all the information in the wisdom tree's soul. Legend had it that the wisdom tree was an existence that had existed since the birth of this crystal wall. Over countless years, the wisdom tree had gathered countless pieces of knowledge, and these things were of great value to Liu. 25 eras? The Magus world and the world of gods have actually fought 25 great wars in this crystal wall? And there's no clear victor every time, with both sides suffering great losses every time? Seeing the information the system had copied from the wisdom tree's soul, Liu was speechless. 25 great wars that involved the entire crystal wall, and the Magus world and the world of gods had both been destroyed and rebuilt 25 times. If there was no clear victor, they would probably fight until the end of time. Forget it, I'll do something good. End your cycle of destruction and rebirth, and end these great wars. Liu instantly put on a dignified appearance. Wisdom Tree, I'll give you a mission. After copying all the information, Liu assigned the Wisdom Tree a mission. This was Liu's original goal, and the information was just a bonus. The Wisdom Tree itself was Liu's main goal. Please instruct me, Sovereign. The Wisdom Tree hurriedly bowed and awaited the order. With your strength, it shouldn't be difficult to enter the world of gods. After you enter, gather a group of elves and form a tribe of elves for me. As Liu spoke, he waved his hand, and a ball of light revolved in his hand. This is a new energy system I've created. This system that uses the energy of nature, I call it Druid. You will form an army of druids for me. Yes, the wisdom tree possessed boundless knowledge, and was very familiar with the various planes of the crystal wall. Naturally, it knew about the world of gods. After receiving Li Yu's order, the wisdom tree received the ball of light from Li Yu, broke through the void, and headed to the world of gods from the astral plane to complete the construction of Li Yu's so-called Druid army. The Burning Legion, the Scourge Legion, the Legendary Warriors, the Druid Legion, and in the future, the Holy Knight Legion. When the time comes, it'll become Warcraft. Li Yu laughed involuntarily. Chapter 489. The chess pieces in the Magus world have been laid out. With the Tower of Truth spreading the Calamity Army, the legendary warriors rising from the Red Moss Highlands, and the Burning Legion that Li Yu had assigned to Julian, it was enough to set off a storm. Just the Druid army in the world of gods isn't enough. The Holy Knights of the Silver Hand must also be brought out. Li Yu stood in the astral plane, looking down at the countless planes that flowed like a river of stars. Although the Trial's Eye is only rank 7, it should be enough to be used as a light bulb for the source of holy light after some modifications. Li Yu glanced at the resource warehouse. Following the law of contracts of the Trial's Eye, he easily locked onto its position. A plane similar to the Purgatory world? The Trial's Eye, the Nefarious Filthbird, and the Snake Dowager each occupy a continent? Li Yu wasn't interested in chaotic creatures like the Nefarious Filthbird. Li Yu couldn't be bothered with the entanglement between the Snake Dowager and Leylin. It was fine as long as the Trial's Eye was in his hands. Of course, creating these powers isn't for fun. Whether it's the Magus world or the world of gods, I left behind a backup plan to instigate a war in advance. This was Li Yu's plan. Once these powers accumulated to a certain extent, they would definitely affect the structure of the world, and war would be unavoidable. A war within the world, and a war between the two worlds. This was the most direct collision of laws. Both plane wills wanted to devour the other, and naturally placed most of their energy on the other side. When the two plane wills appeared at the peak of the astral plane, the land of eternal silence, they rolled up their sleeves and went into battle. Li Yu could then have a heart-to-heart talk with them. Everything is going according to my plan. Li Yu smiled and waved his hand. His body turned into a colorless and transparent ray of light, merging into one of the planes. Dusky skies, blood-red earth. Li Yu's figure flashed, and he left the plane membrane, silently entering this plane that was similar to the Purgatory world. It's a plane between the world of gods and the world of magi, although it's only slightly inferior to the main plane. However, this is the difference between heaven and earth. Li Yu scanned the plane and quickly found the location of the Trial's Eye. What future do you have by hiding here? Trial's Eye, why don't you be the third wheel? Li Yu smiled. His figure flowed through the void like water. In an instant, he arrived at a space where light was condensed. The brilliant golden light rippled like a vast ocean. In the golden sea of light, a golden eyeball rose from the ocean like a bright moon. Hello, big light bulb. Li Yu's figure appeared in the sea of light. He greeted the huge eyeball with a smile on his face. How dare you? I am the Trial's Eye Yu. Seeing Li Yu's sudden appearance, and hearing Li Yu's frivolous tone, Trial's Eye flew into a rage, and then it was done for. Freeze. With a soft bellow, the flow of time and space froze completely at this moment. Everything in the world came to a standstill. Big light bulb, I didn't expect that I would catch you right. Li Yu walked in front of the huge eyeball and patted it like a rubber ball. The rules of contracts aren't your foundation. The rules of trials? That's interesting. With a flick of his sleeves, Trial's Eye disappeared and landed in Li Yu's system repository. System, analyze Trial's Eye. Trial's Eye. Eye-shaped creature from another world. Rank 7 Magus. Attribute, light. Laws, judgment, protection, punishment. The system quickly displayed the results of the analysis of Trial's Eye. The rules of contracts are only a part of the rules of trials? The rules of judgment, protection, and punishment are very suitable for paladins. So, you are destined to be a big light bulb. With a thought, Liu immediately began the creation of the source of holy light, which was the big light bulb. System: erase all of the trial's eyes consciousness and change its body structure into an energy body made of holy light. The energy in his body was extracted by the system, and with a sweep of multicolored light, the trial's eye turned into a ball of pure light. Ever since Liu lost the two energy sources of the crocodile ancestor and the heavenly tomb space, he had been using his own strength to drive the system. With Liu's current strength at the mortal fairy level, compared to the crocodile ancestor's holy level energy source, it was unknown how many times stronger it was. Liu didn't care about the normal energy consumption. Add the redemption rule to the judgment, protection, and punishment rules, and reshape the source of holy light. The so-called redemption rule was also commonly known as healing. Liu had already studied the holy light of the Essence Temple in the Marquis Champion's world, and naturally was not unfamiliar with this healing skill. Forget about resurrection. Paladins are already cockroaches in terms of healing alone. Liu looked at the pure light condensed in the repository and nodded in satisfaction. Now, it's time to set the rules for paladins to be blessed by the holy light. Liu stretched out his hand, and a pure and brilliant light appeared in his hand. In the name of order, construct the law. Liu held up this holy light, as if making a declaration to all living beings, and spoke of the path of holy light he had set. The holy light does not need faith, the holy light is only faith. Those who pursue justice, those who pursue freedom, those who protect the weak, those who do not fear the strong, those who bravely resist, all will be blessed by the holy light. This declaration was the law of the holy light. It seemed that this path of holy light was very righteous, very open and aboveboard. But this was the root of the chaos. In this crystal wall system, the strong set the rules, and the strong controlled everything. So, was there justice in this world? Was there freedom? At every moment, there were countless weak people in this world who were bullied, destroyed, and ravaged by the strong. Now, with the appearance of the origin of holy light, these weak people who were bullied, destroyed, and ravaged suddenly sensed the holy light in their moment of unwillingness, and indignation. That's very interesting. A smile appeared on Liu's face when he thought of that scene, but then he shook his head. It's not impossible to brand the path of holy light into the laws of the entire crystal wall system. However, that would alert the enemy. If Liu made the path of holy light into a law of the entire crystal wall system, the commotion he caused would definitely alarm the plane's consciousness. When that happened, he would have to take the field himself, and would not be able to play the game of being the mastermind behind the scenes. So, the path of holy light of the entire crystal wall system should be delayed. Let's place the path of holy light in the world of gods first. Liu put away the newly created origin of holy light, and his figure disappeared into the void like a transparent wave of light. Chapter 490. The shape of this crystal wall system is like a dumbbell. Standing at the peak of the astral plane and looking down from the top of all the planes in this crystal wall system, the entire world was like a dumbbell with two large ends and a narrow middle. The two large ends, one was the Magus world, and the other was the world of gods. As for the small part in the middle, it was made up of countless small planes and worlds. In the world of gods, the supreme god is the consciousness of the plane, and there are many gods with strong, medium, and weak divine force. From the memories of the ancient wisdom tree, Liu obtained countless pieces of knowledge about this world, and had a clear understanding of the world of gods. 25 planar wars have engulfed the entire crystal wall system, causing the world of gods to be destroyed and rebuilt 25 times. How many gods have fallen in this process? light flashed around him, and Li Yu's figure passed through the endless space, arriving at the other end of the crystal wall system, the world of gods. The planar membrane is very sturdy. Looking up at the huge plane in front of him, a layer of golden crystallization had condensed into a membrane. Li Yu nodded. Is this a closed-door cultivation and development? It was different from the Magus world, where the membrane was completely open. Looking at these two methods, the Magus world leaned towards the offensive. On the other hand, the world of gods advanced step by step, advancing steadily. It was hard to say which method was stronger. After all, both sides had already fought 25 times, and there was still no clear winner. Since I'm here to bring peace to you. Look, how great am I? Li Yu chuckled, and like water, he seeped into the planar membrane, instantly passing through it and entering the world of gods. Is the world of gods like this? Li Yu silently appeared in the world of gods, looking at the various races living and thriving. It didn't seem much different from the Magus world. However, the divine kingdom of the gods hangs high in the sky, vast and mighty divine light illuminating the world. Li Yu looked up at the sky, and saw many moons hanging in the sky. They were more resplendent than the starry sky, and more glorious than the sun and moon. They seem high and mighty, but in the end, they are just pawns of the planar will. Li Yu pursed his lips and didn't bother to pay attention to those gods. I also need to find my own chess piece. Li Yu released his divine sense, silently sweeping through the surroundings, and instantly found another target. Why? A young man wearing leather armor and holding a sword was half kneeling on the ground. The hand holding the sword was trembling because of the force. In front of the young man was a row of newly buried graves. I fight to protect this country. I will fight to protect this land. But I can't protect my own family. I was bathed in blood on the battlefield. But my parents, my loved ones, were bullied to death by the nobles. Is there any fairness in this world? Is there still justice in this world? The young man raised his sword angrily. Where's the fairness? Where is justice? Child, fairness and justice will always be in your heart. At this moment, a gentle and loving voice, like a kind father's, sounded. A pure, bright, and moonlight illuminated the graves. It was like the light of dawn piercing through the darkness, bringing warmth and hope. Child, may the holy light deceive you. The brilliant light was like flowing water from the top of his head, cleansing his entire body, as if it was a baptism of the holy light. In this light, the young man found that his soul seemed to have communicated with a vast and boundless power. Punishment, protection, redemption. Feel the holy light. With your soul, find your path. In this light, the gentle voice still sounded in his ears. My heart? The young man took a deep breath and gripped his sword tightly. I want revenge. Swoosh, a pair of wings formed by light stretched out behind the young man, and the vast power of the holy light filled his entire body. This was the fury of vengeance, wings of brilliance bestowed by the holy light. Do not fear the strong, fight bravely. The crusade of justice, this is the path of punishment. The gentle voice sounded in his ears, and the young man came back to his senses, stretched his wings of brilliance, and turned his head to look in the direction of the voice. Are you a god? In the eyes of the young man, he only saw a ball of brilliance, a ball of pure and flawless brilliance. The holy light is not a god, and the holy light does not need faith. The holy light is just the belief in your heart. Be firm in your beliefs, and the power of the holy light will make you invincible. The brilliance gradually faded, and the figure of a middle-aged man with a square face, wearing heavy armor, holding a square warhammer and blonde hair, appeared in front of the young man. My name is Uther, the emissary of the holy light. Child, are you willing to pursue the path of the holy light with me? I, Karsi, will always uphold the path of the holy light. With the sword of the holy light, I will punish those who have done evil. The wings of brilliance slowly disappeared, and Karsi knelt in front of Uther. "Emissary of the Holy Light, thank you for your teachings." "Very good, child, may the Holy Light deceive you." Uther nodded approvingly. "The path of the Holy Light needs companions. Go and find companions who have the same beliefs as you." After finishing his words, Uther exuded brilliant brilliance, and step by step, he walked into the void and disappeared in front of Karsi. Well, the so-called Uther was a virtual image created by Liu. "The Retribution Cavalry has come out, but I have to get the Defense Cavalry and Healing Cavalry." Liu smiled. With a flicker of his body, he left the country and arrived at another piece of land. There was a small village in front of him. At this moment, a battle was happening in this small village. Bang! An ogre that was 5 meters tall swung a huge club that looked like a tree trunk and smashed it down on the stone wall of the small village. "Hold on! Hold on! We have no way to retreat. Behind us is our home, and behind us is our family. We will never retreat." A middle-aged man raised a wooden shield, and firmly blocked in front of him. "The belief of protecting your home is praiseworthy." Liu smiled, and with a flick of his finger, a light silently fell into the middle-aged man's body. And so, the holy light began to deceive again. Holy light protection. The middle-aged man's body erupted with brilliant brilliance, and the golden brilliance covered everyone around him with a layer of golden light shield. Righteous shield bash. He waved the shield in his hand, and a holy light rushed out and fiercely hit the ogre. Ouch! The ogre wailed and fell to the ground. At this point, Liu's defense cavalry had appeared. With the spread of the path of the holy light, this method of obtaining the power of the holy light without the need for faith was countless times more convenient than becoming a priest. In this way, the path of holy light would inevitably clash with the various churches. War would be inevitable. The holy light source is a rank 7 magus, which is equivalent to a true god in this world. It's not something that ordinary people can deal with. Furthermore, Liu raised his head and looked at a huge island outside the world of gods. The wisdom tree has already settled in the elven race's Yongju Island? The elves of the world of gods had a sacred object called the ancient tree of life. However, according to the wisdom tree's memories, these so-called ancient trees of life were only seeds that it had scattered. With this identity, the wisdom tree directly transformed into an ancient tree on Yongju Island and ruled over all the ancient trees of life on the island. In this way, the elves fell into the wisdom tree's control. Liu's plan for the druid army could be carried out smoothly. The elves who once ruled the entire continent have now been chased out of the sea. However, the elves have never lowered their noble head. Liu's mind connected to the wisdom tree. After hearing all the reports, he was very satisfied. When the elves are strong enough, the glory of the elves will be restored. This is inevitable. Thus, another hidden danger of war was buried by Liu. Wisdom tree, the holy light source over there is one of us. It's only a rank 7 magus, and it only has laws and no consciousness. Take care of it and don't let it be destroyed. Yes. The wisdom tree agreed without hesitation. That's right. The elves can spread the path of the holy light too. The silver hand knights have appeared. The elves' daybreak blades can also be produced. At this thought, Liu sent the 3 paths of the holy light source to the wisdom tree. The elves would naturally accept the path of light taught by the wisdom tree. After all, the paladin's retribution, protection, and redemption were very open and aboveboard. Up till now, all the chess pieces have been laid out. We're just waiting to watch a good show. Liu smiled as he looked at the world of gods. Suddenly, a sentence appeared in his mind. I'm not here to call for peace, but for war. May the holy light be with you. Liu laughed and waved his hand. His entire body was like a colorless and transparent ripple, seeping into the void and disappearing. One, at the peak of the astral plane, at the peak of all the planes in this crystal wall system, a ripple-like figure instantly condensed. Liyu's figure reappeared. The seeds have been planted. All that's left is to wait for the harvest season to arrive. With Liyu's current strength, the magic weapons and treasures of ordinary worlds were no longer of much interest to him. Unless it was a treasure on the level of a mortal deity, it would only have the value of a collector's item in his hands. After accumulating for a few worlds, Liyu's harvest was bountiful. The current Liyu had already passed the stage of pursuing material resources. This was like doing business. The primitive accumulation stage had passed, and it was time to pay attention to the image and culture of the enterprise. Liyu naturally did not have any brand image or culture to do, but his standards were higher now. He no longer had the mentality of a loser who wanted to take back everything he saw. Therefore, in every world that I enter from now on, the only thing that's valuable to me is the system of rules of that world. If it's not something very valuable, it's not worth my effort. The other resources will be left to the system's host. Although he was not interested in ordinary resources, the operation of the system definitely required resources to maintain. This task naturally fell to the hosts of the various worlds. This is the astral plane's land of eternal silence. In the entire crystal wall system, only the wills of the two planes that have surpassed rank 8 can reach here. Liyu stood at the peak of the entire crystal wall system, smiling as he looked at this still space where time did not flow and matter did not change. He smiled as he sat down cross-legged. Everything has been arranged. All that's left is to wait. Liyu closed his eyes slightly. His entire body was like a transparent ripple that seeped into this land of eternal silence, waiting for the harvest season to arrive. Chapter 492. Whoosh, Rose's thorn, whistled through the air and penetrated the huge head of an underground petrifying lizard. The 10-meter-long giant beast fell to the ground. Finally, level 10. Radiant golden light lingered in the air, and Julian felt that his body had recovered to its best state. As a warlock of the 10th level, Eurydion had gained several new skills that were very useful. Life Diversion, Curse of Pain, Sacrificial Fire. Life Diversion allowed Julian to convert life force into magic power. Curse of Pain and Sacrificial Fire were both very powerful offensive skills. In addition to skills, the increase in attributes was also very pleasing. True name, Julian. Race, Dark Titan. Title, Burning Lord. Profession, Warlock. Level, 10. Model, Elite. Strength, 15. 0 Constitution, 15. 0 Agility, 17. 0 Spirit, 39. 5 Magic, 39. 5. The increase in physical attributes was not too big, but with 15 points of strength, constitution, and agility, Julian's body was comparable to a high-level creature. More importantly, his spirit and magic were close to 40 points. Such a strong spirit was close to the standard of a level 2 warlock. Burning Lord has reached level 10, in line with the current world's warlock profession rules. Profession system has begun to be corrected. While Eurydion was still in a state of pleasant surprise, the system notification suddenly rang. Profession correction? What does that mean? Before Julian could finish his words, a sharp pain suddenly came from his body to his soul, making him want to die. He looked up to the sky and howled. Boom! There was a loud bang in his mind, and a huge amount of spirit power suddenly condensed, and turned into a crystal like a multi-faceted diamond. Within this crystal, countless runes intertwined with dark shadow and raging flames revolved, condensing into 2 intertwined talismans. Profession system correction completed. Current world power system matching completed. The excruciating pain came quickly and left just as quickly. In a moment, the system's correction of the profession system had been completed. Phew, Julian let out a sigh of relief. He still had lingering fears about the pain he had just experienced. What changes will there be after the profession correction? It won't be nothing like last time, right? Julian quickly opened the character interface. Profession, Bloodline Warlock, Level 1. How did I become Level 1? Julian was stunned. Is class modification a downgrade? It wasn't easy for me to reach Level 10. According to the current rules of the world, Bloodline Warlocks, Magi, are divided into 9 ranks. The original level of a Warlock was 10, which was equivalent to the current level. It is equivalent to the standard of a rank 1 Magus. So that's the case. Hearing that he had not been demoted, Julian let out a sigh of relief. Then, he immediately reacted. Level 1 Official Wizard. Does that mean I'm already an official Magus? Julian was both surprised and happy. Wizards have talent spells. I haven't even constructed my innate spell. Don't tell me it automatically generates innate spells? Bloodline Warlocks advance according to their bloodline, and their innate magic abilities are bestowed by their bloodline. Bloodline bestowing innate spells? What kind of innate spell did my Dark Titan bloodline give me? Julian hurriedly focused his mind on the crystal in his mind. As his mind revolved, Julian immediately understood the origins of these 2 innate spells. Devil's Skin. Beginner. The environment in which the devils live is extremely harsh. This results in the devil's skin not only having sufficient physical resistance, but also being able to resist various energy attacks. Dark Baptism. In the name of the Burning Lord, the current creature is baptized by the Burning Legion. After the baptism, the creature automatically becomes a subordinate of the Burning Legion and is under the command of the current Burning Lord. These 2 innate spells. Julian took a deep breath. Even though he had overestimated the Dark Titan bloodline, Julian was still shocked. At this moment, Julian was no longer a layman who knew nothing about Magi. He was very clear that a rank 1 Magus could only have 1 innate spell. However, he had 2 innate spells. More importantly, these 2 innate spells were very powerful. Ordinary Magi would choose a defensive spell as their innate spell in order to ensure their survival and safety. However, this innate spell could not provide a comprehensive defense. After all, the elemental affinity was different. Everyone's innate spells were fixed according to their own attribute. This resulted in Magi's defensive spells having high elemental resistance and low elemental resistance. However, Julian's Devil's Skin innate spell was actually an all-elemental resistance and a comprehensive defense. It could be said that as long as Julian did not actively deactivate the innate spell, Devil's Skin, he could stand on the ground and allow acolytes below rank 1 to attack him without any harm. This Dark Baptism is even more extraordinary. From the description, this should be the innate ability of the Burning Lord to recruit subordinate. After all, the Burning Lord cannot be a commander without an army. Julian thought of the black-robed Hans who had brought him to the Shadow's Nest, and a cold smile appeared on his face. Hans, the dark purification that you want is not here, but there is a dark baptism. The effect is even more significant. Julian looked in the direction of the Shadow's Nest. I've spent half a year hunting monsters and leveling up. It's time to go back and take a look. Gulp, gulp. Julian had just taken a step when the shadow under his feet twisted. Imp, whose appearance had changed greatly, appeared in front of Julian. Imp has also leveled up. After obtaining the demonic book of control, Julian's imp had already leveled up. Now that Julian's strength had increased to that of a rank 1 Magus, Imp had also leveled up. Rank 2 Magus? At this moment, Imp was no longer 3 inches tall. Its figure was comparable to an ordinary person's. It had dark red skin, bulging muscles, and sharp black claws on its fingers, which were like short blades. On its sinister face was a pair of blood-red eyes. 2 fangs protruded from the corners of its mouth, and from time to time, a few sparks burst out from its nostrils. It seems that even the Dean of the Shadow's Nest is only a rank 2 magus, right? Imp is definitely not comparable to a true rank 2 magus, but Imp's attack power is equivalent to a rank 2 magus. Imp usually hid in Udian's shadow and did not reveal its whereabouts. Once Udian was fighting with someone, Imp would suddenly go berserk. With a rank 2 magus attack, who knew how many people would be caught off guard and killed in an instant? This time, I obtained the Dark Titan's bloodline and became a true Burning Lord. Moreover, I've advanced to an official magus. This time I've gained a lot. Udian recalled Imp back into the shadow and walked towards the Shadow's Nest. Black-robed Hans, you are very suitable to be the first soldier under my command. Chapter 493. Udian? You're back? Black-robed Hans saw Udian return to the loft and his expression turned ugly. Although the battle experience of an acolyte is important, you should not have spent half a year training outside the academy. The foundation of a magus lies in the growth of spiritual force. What's the point of blindly killing? With your aptitude, half a year is enough for you to advance to a rank 2 acolyte. You've wasted half a year. Black-robed Hans stared coldly at Udian. Don't forget the contract between us. If you don't complete the contract, don't blame me for being impolite. I've already advanced. Julian glanced at Hans expressionlessly and replied in an indifferent tone. Advanced? Rank 2 acolyte? Black-robed Hans raised his eyebrows in surprise. It seems that your aptitude is above my estimation. You'll have to concentrate on your training. You're not allowed to go out until you've advanced to an official magus. I'm already an official magus. Udian sneered and released his aura. Dark shadows and raging flames surged, and the enormous spiritual force was like a vast ocean, surging violently. How is this possible? Hans' eyes flashed with horror. He suddenly found that Udian's strength was beyond his control. Fortunately, there was the contract with Trials I as a witness. Under the rules of Trials I, no one could violate it. Poor Hans, he did not know that the rules of the contract had no restrictions on Udian. More importantly, even the Trials I itself had been turned into a source of holy light by Liu. The contract with Trials I as a witness was meaningless. What I promised you, I'll do it. Udian raised his palm, and an extremely dense dark force surged in his palm. Dark purification? Good. That's great. Black-robed Hans secretly rejoiced. Fortunately, he had the contract with Trials I. Otherwise, he would not be undergoing dark purification, but facing the wrath of an official magus. After all, letting someone set their innate spell to something as meaningless as dark purification was tantamount to cutting off the future of this magus. I'm ready. The black-robed Hans hurriedly lifted his black cloak, revealing his terrifying face in front of Udian. In the name of the Burning Lord, I bestow upon this person the baptism of darkness. A strange incantation resounded, and the churning shadows were like a vast river, fiercely washing over the black-robed Hans from head to toe. The churning shadows enveloped the black-robed Hans, and his figure was completely submerged within the darkness. Under the erosion of this power of darkness, the black-robed Hans felt as if his entire body was being completely disintegrated and then reconstructed bit by bit. The intense pain caused the black-robed Hans to scream crazily. In fact, the so-called dark baptism was completely the decomposition and reconstruction of the system's resource library. The shadows engulfed the black-robed Hans. This was an illusion. The real situation was that Black-Robe Hans had been reconstructed by the Army Emblem system. Just like that, the black-robed Hans managed to expel the mixed magical energy from his body and restore his original appearance. But he also lost his freedom forever. Burning Legion's subordinate, rank 1 Magus Hans, greets the Lord. After the shadows dispersed, the black-robed Hans turned into a handsome middle-aged man with a head full of golden hair. Once he appeared, Hans hurriedly bowed to Udian. System notification. The Burning Lord has obtained the first subordinate. Army interface activated. When Hans kowtowed to Udian, a system notification sounded in Udian's mind. Army interface? Isn't this the guild interface? Udian discovered that the so-called army interface was completely the guild interface in the game. In the name of the Burning Lord, from today onwards, you are a member of the Burning Legion. After Udian said this, Hans' name and information appeared in the army interface. Thank you, Lord. After Hans expressed his gratitude, he respectfully followed Udian. Hans, the Legion still needs to be expanded. Udian pushed open the window and looked at the huge black tower in the Shadow's Nest. A cold smile appeared on his face. I think that the Shadow's Nest can be the base of this Lord's Legion. My Lord is wise. The black-robed Hans had been thoroughly cleansed, so he naturally had no objections to Udian's orders. You should have a few official magi that you are familiar with, right? Now that you have recovered your appearance, don't you want to invite your friends to celebrate? Udian reached out to close the window and turned his head to look at Hans. His expressionless face seemed to have become even colder. Yes, your subordinate understands. Hans accepted the order and left the loft. Not long after, Hans and an unfamiliar magus walked into the loft while chatting and laughing. Are you the new acolyte that Hans took in? The strange wizard glanced at Udian and nodded. Hans said that you didn't use dark purification. Instead, you used a strange spell. I am very curious about this spell. Why don't you show it to me? This is not a spell. A smile appeared on Udian's cold face. He gently raised a finger, and dense shadow energy bloomed at the tip of his finger. This is a gift from the Burning Legion. Udian extended his finger and pointed at this magus. Vast and mighty shadow energy swarmed out. Damn it, this magus found that the situation was not right. Just as he was about to cast a spell to deal with it, he suddenly felt a wave of dizziness, and the magic power that he had just summoned dissipated. Hans, the magus looked at Hans, who had a sinister smile on his face, and his heart turned cold. Then, the mighty shadow energy engulfed this magus like a raging tide. In the name of the Burning Legion, I bestow upon this person a baptism of darkness. After Udian's cold incantation, another member of the Burning Legion was born. Rank 1 Magus Anson greets my lord. The magus who had just been remolded by the darkness purification had officially become another of Udian's hired thugs. Continue. Udian waved his hand, indicating that the two of them should continue with this trick of dragging people into the fire pit. Hence, in the following time, Udian continuously cast the darkness purification on the magi that Hans and Anson had dragged into the pit of fire. After 2 months, all the rank 1 magi in the entire Shadow's Nest, a total of 123 people, had fallen into the pit of fire of the Burning Legion. There is only one rank 2 magus in Shadow's Nest, and that is the Dean of the Shadow's Nest Magus Academy. However, this Dean has not shown himself for many years, and no one knows where he is. At this moment, Udian was already standing at the peak of the Black Tower, looking down at the land beneath his feet. Behind him, a group of magi and acolytes prostrated on the ground. Raise my flag. Udian turned around and looked at the people prostrating behind him. He opened his arms, and vast shadows and raging flames surged. A giant that was 10 meters tall, and emitted endless shadows and raging flames appeared at the peak of the Black Tower. I declare to this world that I, the Burning Legion's Lord, Udian Stormrage, have arrived. In the name of the Burning Legion, this world will be destroyed. Chapter 494. Burning Legion, move out. The gigantic figure, which was emitting endless darkness and flames, swung its arm heavily. Kill! 123 official magi led thousands of acolytes and formed a huge legion. They roared and charged out of the Shadow's Nest. The underground world is vast and boundless. Our goal is to conquer the entire underground world. The giant exuding shadows and flames roared and landed at the front of the army. Like a spearhead, it fiercely pierced into the vast underground world. In the underground world, other than countless high-energy creatures, there were also other intelligent creatures, such as the underground Nagas, Murlocs, cave-dwellers, and of course, other humans. These forces were not weaker than the Shadow's Nest. Udian's war of conquest would not be smooth sailing. However, after activating the Legion mode, all the experience points were obtained by Udian alone. Udian's advancement speed would be very fast. A rank 2 Magus was a giant, and a rank 3 Magus was the supreme ruler of the West Coast. A rank 3 Magus was a warlock of magical beasts, who had reached rank 30. With a legion to gain experience, it would not be difficult for Udian to reach rank 30. That kid, Udian, has really made a name for himself? In the Star Boundaries land of eternal silence, Liu slowly opened his eyes. After hearing the report from the Legion emblem, Liu was very satisfied with Udian's progress. I originally planned to use the net puppets to equip you with the Burning Legion and let you open the door of darkness to bring the Burning Legion into this world. From the looks of it, you can even create your own Burning Legion. Liu smiled. Udian has already started. I can't fall behind in other areas. With a thought, Liu instantly connected to the Tower of Truth. Seers, how is the Scourge plan going? Liu had released the 8 top-grade meditation techniques in the Tower of Truth. This was also an important backup plan. Reporting to Your Excellency so far. The Scourge meditation technique has been downloaded 135,648 times. More than 130,000 people? Liu nodded. 130,000 people, compared to the huge population base, was indeed not much. However, it was difficult to estimate the impact of these 100 million people. Plan Calamity. I'm not trying to form the Calamity Army. As long as these cultivation methods are spread out, it will be enough. These martial arts were all derived by Liu using the orthodox Taoism Dermic arts as a foundation. In essence, these techniques had nothing to do with the origin of the world of Adept. For sorcerers who practiced the Calamity technique, there was no difference. They could still obtain tyrannical power. However, for the world of Adept's planar consciousness, it was a drastic measure. If the planar will was a large tree, then these magi would be the leaves on the tree. The Scourge Army, the Burning Legion, and so on. The ultimate goal of these methods was to clash with the laws of the planar will. As long as Seers continues to spread it, the Calamity technique will definitely spread far and wide. There's no need to pay attention to that. Liu cut off the connection with the Tower of Truth and paid attention to the Red Moss Highlands. Strength and Glory. A group of tall and muscular men raised their heavy battle axes, giant hammers, and heavy swords as they roared towards the sky. Ah! In front of the War God Temple, countless Red Moss warriors shouted loudly. When we shed our blood on the battlefield, while our wives and children starve at home. When we exchange our blood and lives for money, yet we still can't feed our families. Warriors of the Red Moss Highlands, pick up your weapons! In the name of the War God, the warriors of the Red Moss Highlands must possess a status, and glory that matches their strength. Strength and glory! Amidst the deafening roars, the bitter warriors of the Red Moss Highlands finally welcomed the day when they could make a comeback. When a Red Moss Highlands warrior slashed out a 10-meter-long flaming blade with his sword, destroying a wall and a Magus apprentice, the rise of the Red Moss Highlands warriors could no longer be stopped. Crescent Moon Slash, Blazing Fire Slash, Lion's Roar, Barbaric Charge. Each of the Red Moss Highlands warriors was like a heavy tank, crushing all resistance in front of them. A war broke out quietly, and then it ended quietly. The countries around the Chernobyl Islands, this land of sorcery, were completely under the rule of the Red Moss Highlands warriors. To the Magus continent, the center of the continent was where the Magus civilization flourished. Even the West Coast and the South Sea domain were ignored. Small islands like the Chernobyl Islands were even less important to the Magi. Thus, without the Magi noticing, the profession of warrior began to circulate in all the countries of the Chernobyl Islands. Compared to Magus, which required extraordinary talent, a smart mind, and an abundance of knowledge, the profession of warrior had no requirements at all. As long as you persevered, as long as you worked hard, you would be able to obtain strength, a sturdy body tempered by Gaia force, and various sword techniques powered by metal force. Who would be willing to let go of such powerful strength? Thus, in the entire Chernobyl Islands, the position of warrior completely replaced Magus. The war god temple also became the holy land in the hearts of all the warriors in the Chernobyl Islands. Very good. A country with warriors as its foundation has been born. Liu smiled and nodded. I can foresee that if the Red Moss Highlands warriors continue to develop and strengthen, a small place like the Chernobyl Islands will definitely not be able to stay. The vast Magus continent is a good place for warriors to gallop on the battlefield. Red Moss Highlands, legendary warriors. This team was another blade Liu used to carry out the collision of laws. Yudian's Burning Legion, legendary warriors of the Red Moss Highlands, and the Tower of Truth's calamity spread. The Magus world is going to be ruined. Liu smiled. I am benefiting the common people, once and for all, solving all problems, so that there will no longer be war after war in this world. The Magus world was progressing smoothly, and so was the world of gods. The elves' perpetual gathering island had long fallen into the control of the ancient wisdom tree. The druids' path of nature, the blades of dawn path of holy light, were widely spread among the elves. Regardless of whether it was the druids or the holy knights, they were all versatile fighters who could fight, tank, and heal. The elves were very happy with such strength. In the world of gods, the path of holy light was also constantly spreading. Everything was proceeding according to Liu's plan, and everything was under his control. My path is to control the heavens and the myriad worlds. So, let's start from this world. Liu smiled as he looked beyond the astral plane, looking at the Magus world and the world of gods that were entrenched at two ends. Change is about to begin. Chapter 495. I've finally leveled up. Leading the army of the Shadow's Nest, Yudian wiped out all resistance within a radius of 10,000 miles. The attack power of the wizards who had been integrated into the army was off the chart. With more than 100 level 1 wizards attacking together, even a level 2 wizard could only turn around and run, not even daring to look back. They wiped out the cavemen, crushed the subterranean murlocs, and defeated the subterranean nagas. Well, it was not known if it was because of the name Yudian. At this moment, the Burning Lord Yudian already had a Naga army under his command. After integrating this Naga tribe, Yudian's own strength had officially advanced to a level 2 wizard. Warlock level is already level 20. Magical beast warlocks at level 20 had a few crucial skills. Life absorption and life diversion. This combination skill had been completed. Absorbing life force and transforming it into magic power. As long as there were living creatures in front of Yudian, his magic power would never be used up. Summon Voidwalker, summon Hell Warhorse, Fear Spell, create Healing Stone, Soul Absorption, summon Hellhound. The appearance of these new spells made Yudian's strength soar countless times. Yudian was now a level 2 wizard, and the Book of Control gave him the ability to summon creatures beyond his level. Therefore, the Imp, Voidwalker, Hell Warhorse, and Hellhound that he could summon were all level 3 high-energy creatures. With 4 level 3 wizard-level pets, Udian could run amok in most places in the wizard world. My lord. Hans brought a group of people to Udian and reported, My lord, the army's surroundings have been cleaned up. Good. Udian nodded at Hans. Have you found the passage to the Dark Zone? The Dark Zone was the real underground world. The underground world where the Shadow's Nest was located could only be said to be the intersection of the underground and the surface. The Dark Zone was the main point of Udian's conquest. According to legend, the underground world had a total of 7 levels. Each level had incomparably powerful creatures, and the deeper one went, the higher the energy level of the creatures. The 7th level of the subterranean cavern was probably filled with rank 7 magi and above. What Julian could do now was to explore the first layer of the darkest zone. My lord, we found a sealed passage. Hans bowed to Udian and reported, My lord, this passage was sealed by a witchcraft array many years ago. Why don't you go and see for yourself? Hearing Hans' words, Julian frowned slightly. Lead the way. Then, Julian and the others came to the front of a bare black stone mountain. Sir, the sealed passage is over there. Hans pointed at the cliff of the black rock mountain. That pitch-black cliff faintly emitted an aura that made one's heart palpitate. Instance dungeon discovered, darkest region. Do you wish to activate it? When Udian's gaze landed on the cliff, a system notification rang in his mind. It actually became an instance dungeon? Udian smiled and shook his head. Even the game system had appeared. It was normal for a dungeon to appear. Open. Udian waved his hand, and an invisible wave swept across. The pitch-black cliff bloomed with brilliant spiritual light, and a huge hole with a diameter of 20 meters appeared in front of everyone. Is that the darkest region? Udian stood in front of the huge circle of light and frowned as he looked at the bottomless darkness in the depths of the circle of light. Send a scout over. As a rank 20 warlock, Udian already had several pets. Finding the way was something that should be left to the pet. Summon, Voidwalker. Streaks of dark flowing light intertwined and formed a huge array on the ground. Boom. With a violent explosion, a 3-meter-tall creature with a strong body and a body made of dark energy drilled out of the summoning array. Go through the teleportation array. The Voidwalker was a thick-skinned creature. Even if it was attacked, it would not die immediately. It was suitable for scouting. After receiving Udian's order, the Voidwalker, condensed from dark shadows, waved its 2 strong arms, roared, and plunged into the teleportation circle of light. Safe. Through the spiritual connection, Udian received the message from the Voidwalker and confirmed that the other side was safe. Hans, gather the legion and let's go. Udian summoned the Hellsteed and mounted the Warhorse that exuded dark shadows and raging flames under its feet. Behind him were Imp, the Hellhound, and Udian's Burning Legion. The mighty army passed through the teleportation circle and came to a dark and unfamiliar land. It seemed to be a wilderness in front of them. The flat ground was desolate and even underground plants were rare. Is this the darkest region? Udian stepped out of the teleportation circle and walked into the wilderness. The dark energy is more active than the outside world. It's a good place, so. Udian pulled out the rose thorn and pointed forward. He turned his head and looked at the Burning Legion behind him. So, conquer it. Yes, my lord. The Burning Legion, who were lined up neatly behind him, burst into loud cheers. The ferocious Hellsteed stepped out of a burning path of fire. The Hellhound ran in front of the Warhorse, with the Voidwalker and Imp on its left and right. With his pets and the Burning Legion, Julian embarked on the path of conquest. The darkest region, Eastern Region, Woody City. This was a small human city near the Woody Wasteland. In the Woody Wastelands, everything within 10,000 miles was a desolate and barren land. Even those greedy and terrifying foreign races would not have any ideas about a place like the Woody Wasteland. Therefore, although Woody City had city walls, it also had guards. However, their greatest use was probably to make it convenient for the city lord to collect taxes. Rumble. A flame soared into the sky, and a huge flag with raging flames was deeply embedded in the gate of Woody City. On the orders of the Burning Lord Udian, I announce to everyone, the Burning Legion will conquer this world. So, make your choice, to live or to be destroyed. A figure covered in raging flames appeared in front of the flagpole. Monstrous flames swept through the space in front of the city gate like a raging tide. Wizard screams erupted in Woody City. The entire city was in a panic. Clop clop clop. At this moment, the ferocious Hellsteed galloped over, leaving a trail of flames behind it. It was as if a long fire dragon had appeared behind it. Spare us, Lord Wizard! We surrender! Udian was about to let the Voidwalker destroy the city gate in one blow when he heard the people inside shouting for surrender. Well, at least we can get some information. Udian led the army into the city and officially took over the city, beginning the first step of conquering the world. Chapter 496. The Dark Eastern Region? Udian sat in the high hall of the City Lord's mansion, frowning as he listened to the report of the City Lord who was kneeling in front of him. This layer of the underground world is really huge. There are 5 regions: East, West, South, North, and Center. Each region is not smaller than the West Coast. Udian stood up with a smile. Very good. As the first City Lord to surrender to the Burning Legion. In the name of the Burning Lord, I grant you the reward for coming to this darkness. The waves of darkness swept out, and the miserable City Lord was included in the Burning Legion system. In this region, the wizards still use the master-disciple model of the ancient sect? Then, Udian walked to the balcony, looked at the vast region outside, and raised his arm high. Burning Legion, go! A monstrous flame spurted out from Udian's hand, like a fountain of fire erupting. Conquer! Conquer! Outside the City Lord's mansion, the Burning Legion in neat rows raised their arms and shouted. The flag of the burning flame was raised high, and the Burning Legion set off again. My lord, the misty forest is ahead. The City Lord who had just surrendered to the Burning Legion pointed to a forest shrouded in fog and reported to Udian, My lord, this is the residence of a wizard sect. The misty forest? Udian sat on the Hellsteed and waved his hand behind him. Hans' flag? Yes, my lord. The black-robed Hans's body was covered in shadows, and a huge blood-colored flag with burning flames unfolded in his hand. By the order of the Burning Lord, Udian, the Burning Legion will conquer this place. Choose. To survive or to perish. Hanses tossed the flaming flag out of his hand and nailed it to the entrance of the dense fog forest with a bang. Boom! The raging flames swept out like a raging tide, and all the flowers and trees at the entrance of the misty forest were burned to ashes. To survive? To perish? Hans roared at the misty forest. Burning Legion? Where did this sect come from? How dare you attack the residents of our misty forest sect? The Eastern Region's Sects Joint Conference has already agreed that sects are only allowed to fight at the Joint Conference. Private fights are not allowed. At this time, an old man wearing clothes strung together with leaves, with a beard and hair like roots, was holding a wooden staff with knotted branches. He stared angrily at Julian and the others. By doing this, you are challenging the rules of the entire Eastern Region. If you destroy the order of the Eastern Region, you will be attacked by all the sections. You will all die without a burial ground. I see. Eurydion sat on his Hellsteed and looked down at the primitive wizard. He smiled and shook his head. So, your choice is destruction? You are the ones who are seeking death. The magus from the dense fog forest roared furiously. Udian smiled and raised his arm. Since you've chosen destruction, I'll grant you destruction. His raised arm swung down heavily. Kill! Under the army mode, all the magi and all the acolytes focused their attacks at the same time. Rumble. More than 100 rank 1 magi and thousands of acolytes focused their attack. Spells filled the sky like artillery fire, and the entire dense fog forest was cleansed. Among them were imps that had the attack power of rank 3 magi. Their destructive power was even more terrifying. The churning shadows and monstrous flames flattened the entire dense fog forest. Hans, clean up the battlefield, Udian said to Hans. He then looked at the misty forest adept, who had been scared out of his wits, with a smile. You dare! The magus, who was dressed like a primitive man, was shocked and angry at the scene in front of him. He was about to go crazy. We are the Burning Legion. Why wouldn't we dare? Julian curled his lips at the magus. With a flick of his finger, shadow energy erupted. Soul absorption. The shadow energy was like a straw, and it pierced into the magus' head. The magus let out a mournful howl. His eyes rolled back and he fell to the ground. At the same time, a ball of light appeared in Julian's hand, which contained the Wailing Soul. A cult that relies on rules to survive. When the rules are unable to protect you, you're at a loss. I'm afraid this area has been peaceful for a long time. Julian kept the magus soul in his hand, and a cold smile appeared at the corners of his mouth. Then, conquer this land for me. Understood. Behind Julian, the soldiers of the Burning Legion let out earth-shattering shouts. The next cult, the Obsidian Throne. Let's go. Julian waved his hand and led the Burning Legion forward. They passed through the washed white dense fog forest, and headed for the next magus cult, the Obsidian Throne. The so-called Obsidian Throne was a mountain rich in obsidian. The Obsidian Throne was not far from the dense fog forest. The commotion caused by Julian's army sweeping through the dense fog forest naturally alarmed the magi of the Obsidian Throne. Who are you? When Julian's army arrived at the stronghold of the Obsidian Throne, the magi and acolytes of the Obsidian Throne were already prepared. In the name of the Burning Legion, a large flag with raging flames whistled through the air and was nailed to the ground. The blood-red flag with raging flames emitted a monstrous aura. Choose to live or to be destroyed. The Burning Legion gathered and a monstrous shadow surged. Scorching flames swept out and a vast power covered the sky. The spell formation that gathers everyone's power is indeed powerful. A 3-meter-tall figure holding an obsidian scepter walked out of the crowd with heavy step. He looked like an obsidian giant. I am the leader of the Obsidian Throne, Haig. I only respect the strong. If you want us to submit, the power of the spell formation is not enough. At least someone has to defeat me. The leader of the Obsidian Throne raised his obsidian scepter and pointed it at the Burning Legion. Come, defeat me. A rank 2 magus. Julian glanced at Haig and saw the level displayed by the system. He smiled and nodded. Very well. Since you seek defeat, I'll grant you defeat. With a wave of his hand, a figure condensed from endless shadow energy appeared beside Julian. Go, Voidwalker. Capture him for me. Roar! The Voidwalker made of shadows swung its 2 massive arms. It roared crazily and charged towards Haig, the leader of the Obsidian Throne. A summoned creature? Seeing the Voidwalker charging at him, Haig quickly raised his obsidian scepter. The radiance of a spell blossomed from the scepter. Obsidian Thorn. The ground rumbled, and sharp obsidian thorns shot up from the ground. They formed a long path full of thorns in front of Haig. Roar! The rushing Voidwalker did not slow down at all. With a wild roar, its body exploded, turning into a dark shadow that swept past the obsidian spike. It's actually an energy creature? And a rank 3 energy creature? Haig's expression changed when he saw this. He was about to retreat. Roar! The shadow exploded and the Void Walker reappeared. A pair of large arms grabbed Haig tightly. You've lost. Julian urged the Hellsteed to come before Haig. He looked down at him. You've lost. So, submit. This warhorse, is it also a rank 3 high-energy creature? Seeing the Hellsteed, Haig no longer had the courage to resist. He turned around and knelt in front of Julian. Haig, submit to your excellency. Very good. Julian nodded. In the name of the Burning Legion, the Obsidian Throne is now a subordinate of the Burning Legion. Burning Legion, advance! You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.